So much going on in St. Louis, not just IndyCar racing. Of course, the National Blues Museum is here. Notable musicians include Miles Davis and Chuck Berry. Notable sports people too, Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Yogi Berra. And of course, we cannot be in St. Louis without mentioning the Cardinals. 11 World Series titles. But today and tonight, it's all about the 27 drivers of the NTT INDYCAR Series. So let's take a look at the Bommarito Automotive Group 500 starting grid.
I'm Jacob Abel from Louisville, Kentucky.
Hi, I'm Kevin Simpson from the Cayman Islands.
Christian Rasmussen, I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Robert Schwartzman, born in Israel, Tel Aviv.
Stingray Rob, Payette, Idaho.
Graham Rahal, Columbus, Ohio.
Louis Foster, Odium, England.
Nolan Siegel, Palo Alto, California.
Santino Ferrucci, Woodbury, Connecticut.
Rinus VK, Hoofddorp, the Netherlands.
Devlin DiFrancesco, Toronto, Ontario.
I'm Callum Wylot, I'm from Cambridge in the UK.
Connor Daly from Noblesville, Indiana.
I'm Christian Lundgaard from Vejle, Denmark.
Marcus Eriksson, Kumla, Sweden.
Alexander Rossi, Nevada City, California.
I'm Scott Dixon, driver of the number 9 PNC Bank Honda from Auckland, New Zealand.
I'm Kyle Kirkwood from Jupiter, Florida.
Hello, I'm Alex Palou. I'm from Barcelona, Spain.
I'm Colton Herta from Valencia, California.
Felix Rosenqvist, Värnamo, Sweden.
Marcus Armstrong, Christchurch, New Zealand.
Josef Newgarden, Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm David Malukas, grown up in Chicago, Illinois.
Pato O'Ward, Monterey, Mexico.
Scott McLaughlin, Christchurch, New Zealand.
Will Power, Toowoomba, Queensland, Australia.
And that is your starting grid. When we return, you will get to see them race under the lights in St. Louis. We're back in St. Louis with a packed-out crowd. Wherever you are watching from, you are very welcome to our broadcast. We want to wish every father out there a very happy Father's Day. As we go trackside now for the command.
Race fans, it's time to give the command for the Bommarito Automotive Group 500. Please welcome the president of Bommarito Automotive Group, John Bommarito.
Race fans in the stands tonight, and the millions more watching from all over the world. Welcome to one of the greatest shows on 4 wheels, the Bommarito Automotive Group 500. Quick shout out to all the amazing dads out there tonight, especially our founder, Mr. Frank Bommarito, and my father. God bless you, Dad. This is for you. Drivers, start your engine!
And as the engines are fired up, why don't we take a look at the track preview sponsored by Honda.
This place is pretty unique. 1.25 miles in total length. Varying degrees of banking at both ends of the racetrack. Turns 1 and 2 has a little bit more banking than 3 and 4, and the corner radiuses are different. You're going to do about 45 to 50 laps on a tank of fuel here. Expect these guys to stop at least 4 times to make it all 260 laps.
Quite the grid set up as McLaughlin struggles to get away. And he was on the front row of the grid. We'll try and get it restarted. Has the hybrid on board his car, which allows him to restart from the pit lane, if indeed he can do that, or if the problem is something a little bit more complex that the team will need to look at. This, well, it's 2 ovals in a row now for McLaughlin that he's had problems before the race has even got underway. He crashed on his way to the start at the Indianapolis 500, but he gets the engine fired and will make his way out and should be able to make his place back up on the grid to the front row.
He will. We will be able to see him weave his way through for this 3-wide parade lap. They will start 2 wide, but for Scott McLaughlin, that must have been a quick little moment of panic if you think back to what Will mentioned. the warm-up lap crashing out of the Indy 500, James. That's dicey stuff right there. It's good to see him rolling again.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling, isn't it? The start of a race, all this work, all this preparation goes in to getting here and putting on an IndyCar race, and to get to the command to roll off pit lane and have an issue with the car right off the bat. It's definitely a heart in the throat moment, but everything all good for Scott McLaughlin.
The funny thing is, with a 3-wide parade lap, it's a little harder for McLaughlin to weave his way through and get back up there. Maybe he's going to elect to wait until the first parade lap is done. We'll have to see how he plays this.
When he does take his place back at the front, it will be an all Penske front row. Will Power and Scott McLaughlin. It's been a difficult start to the season for Penske and for all the Chevrolet engine teams. Every win so far this year taken by Honda Power, and only 2 drivers have won so far this year. Championship leader Alex Palou and Kyle Kirkwood, who has been the king of the streets.
Well, speaking of power, this is the iconic moment on the warm-up lap. Oh my goodness, it literally just shook our booth. James, I've been coming here for years. I've never felt what I've just felt. The entire main grandstand in the broadcast booth just shuddered with that explosion.
Townsend, we're at the top of that grandstand. I would have rather have never felt that. That was a little unnerving, but wow, man, what a display of pyrotechnics here at Gateway. Absolutely incredible.
Right, before we get this thing started, let's take a closer look at the car that we will see racing today with the Dallara cutaway car, guys.
So one of the things we're going to hear a lot is the difference between the high line and the low line here at Gateway Raceway. The low line, that's just down along the white line of the racetrack. You get all this nice clean air on you, but if you're following the car in front, you can see that air take some of the downforce off the car. So the high line, that's just being one car width off that line to give yourself some clean air on the car.
And the truth is, you almost never find perfectly clean air. It's always a bit of a compromise, but cars are going to be slicing and dicing, and it might be pretty subtle. You might only get, oh, there's some debris on the track from that explosion coming out of those fire cannons on the back straightaway. It should just be, you know, some paper and tape. But let's head down to pit lane. Georgia.
Whew, and we could feel those explosions down here on pit lane too. I have my eye on Will Power, the greatest qualifier in NTT INDYCAR Series history, 71 career poles, 5 here at World Wide Technology Raceway, and just yesterday he got Team Penske their 700th pole across all motorsports platforms. You see on your screen right now, Liz Power, that's Will's wife. She told me that their son Bo is peacefully sleeping in their bus right now, but if Will was to pull it off here on Father's Day, they might whisk Bo away to victory lane. Talk about a Father's Day surprise and a good dream there. Kevin?
Georgia, Alex Palou has won 3 of the last 4 titles and is dominating this year's championship. But until 3 weeks ago, he had never conquered an oval. But now he's won the biggest race in the world, the Indy 500. But this is very different. He's not led a lap here. And Palou told me tonight he desperately wants to get it done on a short oval. More comfortable each year. The best car he said he's had here. Maybe not as strong as the Penske's, but he should be a factor. Jack.
A driver achieving an absolute huge milestone tonight is Graham Rahal. This will be his 300th start in the IndyCar Series. To put that in some context, that is the 3rd most of active drivers and 11th of all time. Congratulations to Graham on a great career, and also my driver to watch, a guy who knows how to move forward on these short ovals.
Great stuff, gang. Thank you so much for your insight. As we were saying, Penske on the front row. It has been a difficult start to the season for one of the most famous names, not just in IndyCar, but in global motorsport. They have had to run their way through conflict and controversy, but here they are on the front foot, really, for the first time this season. Power starts from the pole, McLaughlin from second. Josef Newgarden, who was so fast in practice, will be frustrated starting 5th, but my word, has he looked fast around this track this weekend.
And Will, you talked about the dominance of Honda so far this season. Well, it's top 5 all Chevys. The bow tie bringing the muscle here tonight, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Speaking of muscle, James, 20,000 horsepower in total as these 27 cars get ready to fire off.
We sit on board with Josef Newgarden. The pace car leads. It will pull away, and it will pull in on the back straight. Will Power, as he has done 70 times before. This, the 71st time he will start from the pole position. Stacks the field up, knows how to bring them around to start an IndyCar race. There, his teammate alongside him, Scott McLaughlin. They will go 2 by 2 on this 1 1/4 mile oval. Down the back stretch, through the final couple of corners, and we will have this race underway. 260 laps stand ahead of the drivers of the NTT INDYCAR Series here in St. Louis as day turns to night, as the lights will turn on some way through this race. We await to see if Chevy or Penske can turn the tide and take victory away from Honda, from Ganassi, from Andretti. But as we roll through the final corner and as we roll to green here at Gateway in St. Louis, we are racing, and Will Power has a good start, has the lead from his teammate McLaughlin. Malukas takes the move already and takes third from Pato O'Ward.
Close running there between Newgarden and Colton Herta. Now side by side, Malukas up into second place, and now he's pressuring Power for the lead.
Malukas on the inside. Malukas will have the lead. End of lap one. David Malukas getting it done early, and if you want a sign of intent, that is it right there from Little Dave.
Not so fast as Will Power comes back and takes a look, but decides to tuck in. Remember, these two crashed right here last year, battling for position, but Malukas, maybe a bit of payback with that move, getting forceful early. He looks strong.
Deja vu all over again for those two as Armstrong on the inside of Newgarden attempted in turn 3. We see some of those cars running up high, almost 3 wide here. That's Connor Daly making a huge move on the outside of turn 4.
And a huge leap started all the way down in 15th place as Herta now puts the move on as well. Keep your eyes on Connor Daly, already up to 8th. He loves an oval. He loves a short course oval. Punchy at Indy. Punchy here today as now Kirkwood takes a look on the inside of Armstrong.
You know, we thought that cooler track temperature was going to lead to this good side-by-side racing, and it is absolutely playing out, especially for Connor Daly, one of the strongest drivers historically here, Kevin, and now he's going past Newgarden, a 5-time winner.
Boom! That's the one.
He was afraid he wasn't going to be able to find a path, but he said, as soon as I can get to that high line, I'm going big early. He felt this weekend like he could win.
Kev, we've got a caution out. We've got a driver in the wall, and I think that's Devlin DiFrancesco, who has put the rear of his RLL into the barrier. And after 4 frantic and thrilling laps, we have our first caution here in St. Louis for Devlin DiFrancesco.
The only driver more upset about this caution than Dev is Connor Daly, because he was on an absolute roll. But let's take a look at what happened.
Just lost it.
Lost it on his own on entry there. You got to try to arc it in late here in turn 1, 2. Just a little too much, little too late. Nolan Siegel had the front row view to that one.
So Devlin DiFrancesco, under his own steam, puts it in the barriers, and that is the challenge of Gateway. Verizon Frontline is the advanced network and technology for first responders. That's why today they're recognizing the service and bravery of local first responders with an honorary first lap during today's race. Whether it's on or off the track, please join Verizon Frontline in thanking all first responders for all that they do. Back here at Gateway, the car of Devlin DeFrancesco, the first retirement from today's race, being carted off the track. I can tell you, while we were in break, a number of drivers took the opportunity to come into the pits and top up on fuel. They are Nolan Siegel, Graham Rahal, Kiffin Simpson, Stingray Robb, and Jacob Abel.
We talked about Connor Daly absolutely smoking that start, going bold, going high, and getting aggressive. This is Alexander Rossi, but Connor Daly started behind him. So the question right now is, where's Connor?
Oh,
well,
there he is.
Tired of pricks?
Around the outside of below.
We showed you that DeLauro cutaway car about going into the second lane, the high lane. He was in the high lane, and this was the pass on the 5-time race winner here at Gateway, Josef Newgarden, down the inside. That was from a great run through 3 and 4, just absolutely on rails.
High line, low line, doesn't matter for Connor. He'll find anywhere and make the move. Kevin.
And you might wonder why Josef Newgarden lost some spots. After the caution, he said, crazy understeer, but he said it'll come to us. We'll be okay.
Yeah, that's an experienced driver. He knows what this car needs to feel like by lap 200. He's not super worried about what his balance is right now.
I don't think he's also super worried about exactly which position he is either. This reminds me of his Indy 500 run from the back. It was a mechanical issue that took him out, but he was on his way to the front by way of great skill and patience. We'll see how patient he is on this restart.
Penske feel that Josef Newgarden could have won the Indy 500 if it wasn't for technical gremlins curtailing his day. That's just how good his drive was at the greatest spectacle in racing. David Malukas then will lead the field. Will take them back to green as we pull through the final corner and down the start-finish stretch. We are green, we are racing once again. Keep your eyes out for that purple car of Connor Daly, who was on the move before, as Scott McLaughlin has a look at Will Power up ahead, and we're 2 wide, 3 wide as Alexander Rossi has a look on the inside.
That yellow and black car is Colton Herta getting aggressive, and all of a sudden Connor Daly pops out and makes a move on Marcus Armstrong. Connor Daly now up 9 positions in 6th place. What a run.
The next guy he's got to get is Kyle Kirkwood, who's another big mover so far on the day, +5 in the number 27 machine, as we see Newgarden now. He's pulling out on Marcus Ericsson into turn 1. But Ericsson's going to try to roll the high line.
Well, I think Josef Newgarden watched what Connor Daly did and is starting to think to himself, okay, I need to get a little bit more aggressive here as they fan out further back. Here comes Colton Herta on Newgarden.
As Santino Ferrucci takes a look at the championship leader.
Colton Herta had a big wiggle down low. That was close.
Just enough room between him and Newgarden to get away with it. But when Newgarden can stay up on that second lane, Newgarden's driving in that dirty air of the car. Sorry, Herta's driving in the dirty air of that car in front. So that takes a bit of the downforce off his car, makes it tougher.
Callum Ilott having a pop at the 6-time champion, puts the move on Scott Dixon and makes it stick. Youth having a pop at experience here at St. Louis, and it's glorious to see.
Starts and restarts. Well, restarts will be at a premium for the rest of the night because that's your opportunity to really start to make things happen. Now it gets a little bit harder as the tires start to wear, things start to fan out single file, and this is where those really subtle hunts for clean air start to come in. Watch for cars just try to fall a quarter width off to try to pick up a little more front downforce.
Our champion Alex Palou running a different color scheme this weekend in that green car at the top of your screen as Newgarden has a look up the inside of Marcus Armstrong, but Armstrong keeps his foot in and once again says no way through to Josef Newgarden.
It's a tough thing to do when you're dealing with a driver that's had so much success here. So Armstrong doing a great job. He was the top qualifying Honda in the field, but doing very well to keep Josef Newgarden behind him right now.
And Josef Newgarden looking smartly measured with each move, each decision here. As we ride on board with Santino Ferrucci, the Bommarito Auto Group car, and Ferrucci, wow, feeling inspired.
That's 2 in 1. That's Dixon and Ericsson. Then he rolls up on the inside of Alexander Rossi.
Keep in mind that Santino Ferrucci's teammate, David Malukas, is crushing it up front. So presumably Ferrucci has a similar setup and a balance.
Newgarden has made it past Marcus Armstrong. So Newgarden up to 7th place with Connor Daly ahead of him. Let's listen in to Josef Newgarden's radio.
Just under there, dude. Copy that. We got left side wide if we can. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Copy.
So he's just talking about understeer. What I like to hear, though, is how calm he is on the radio for how manic it looks like from where we're sitting. Understeer, of course, just sort of a lack of front grip. He's turning the wheel, but the car's not really turning around the corner. They have some tools inside the car they can use to adjust the balance. The pit wall recommended one. He said, yeah, didn't really like that. Again, this is a super experienced driver. He knows not to panic. He knows to try the different combinations of the tools, as now he's getting a run back on Connor Daly.
Yeah, this looks to be a great run as he pops to the inside. Should have the position. How hard does Connor Daly press again on the outside? Oh boy, Daly hammering it.
Very hard from Connor Daly. Lovely stuff from the native of Noblesville, Indiana. He loves oval racing, does Connor Daly, and as we were saying, doesn't matter if it's low line or high line, Connor carries the pace, carries the speed, and will not be passed that easily.
And these two drivers, Connor Daly and Newgarden, grew up racing against each other all through the junior levels on their way to IndyCar. And I'm sure there's a smirk from both of them as they had that close two-wide moment. Georgia.
Well, we saw David Malukas in that pass over Will Power, but before he even jumped in his race car, he told me he was going to be cautiously aggressive at the beginning of this race, and that's exactly what he did. But the thing I find so interesting, he also told me that his race car right now is set up for the end of the race. So there is still speed to come out of the four.
There is your race leader, David Malukas, in the blue and white car.
And he's gapping Will Power as well. That was a 0.3 of a second gap just a few laps ago. Now it's up over a second as we see this battle between two of the biggest movers so far today.
And I like this. Daly now starting to apply the pressure to Kyle Kirkwood ahead and moves to the inside. Wants to put a car between himself and Josef Newgarden, and that is another position for Connor Daly. What a start to the race for him. That's up 10 places from where he started.
He is absolutely hooked up, totally confident, low, middle, high. He's doing all the lines tonight, and he's doing it well.
And you got to remember, he drives for JHR, Hunkos Hollinger, a fairly young team. Haven't had a ton of success as Newgarden with a late move attempt on Kirkwood. Too late to make it stick. Kyle just hanging around the outside there, but again, Daly putting these guys under a lot of pressure. He's now in the gearbox of Pato O'Ward. He's knocking on the door of the 4th place running car, one of the most successful overdrivers in the series in that McLaren, and he's going to line him up here, T-Bell.
You saw Connor Daly floating high mid-corner, and he's getting there on that front wing and making it work. Connor Daly now to 4th as Newgarden and Kirkwood side by side.
And Newgarden should make that move stick, but Kirkwood keeps his foot in. The man who won the last race in Detroit won on the streets of Long Beach as well. Something of a street course specialist, Josef Newgarden, something of a gateway specialist. And you see picture in picture, the top of your screen, Devin DiFrancesco thought his day was over. The team, however, as we understand it, may have been able to actually repair his car, get that rear wing back on it, and he can get back in this race.
He can get back on track.
Oh no, our camera guy is down. I hope he's all right. It looked like something happened there as DiFrancesco stopped.
But it's Malukas who leads to the tune of 1.6 seconds over Will Power. Then it's Scott McLaughlin, and Connor Daly has made it past Pato O'Ward. Up to 4th place for Connor Daly. That is 11 places from race start.
Dude.
Welcome back to St. Louis, where we've had 2 crashes today, one for Devlin DiFrancesco, one for our cameraman, Bammer, Kevin Hinsley, reported to be okay. The camera, possibly not so much. But we're back to racing action, and David Malukas is now up to and lapping traffic. These the drivers who stopped under caution when it came out for that Devlin DiFrancesco accident. That Graham Rahal, Devlin DiFrancesco's teammate. Malukas passes with ease, and guys, Malukas is doing a stunning job here today. 2.5 seconds ahead of Will Power, and these 2 drivers have been a storyline all the way through this season. Why? Because Will Power, one of the most experienced, one of the most successful drivers in the NTT INDYCAR Series, does not have a contract for next season, and there is talk throughout this paddock that if Penske choose to replace him for next year, it would be David Malukas who takes his place.
The problem is, you're talking about the fastest driver in the history of IndyCar over 1 lap. Will Power, 71 pole positions after starting on pole for this race. 5th in the championship, James, coming in here. The best of the 3 Penske cars. How do you bench a guy with those kind of numbers?
It doesn't make sense to me, but look, there's still a lot of season left to go. Malukas 11th in the championship coming into this weekend, but right now he is doing an incredible job.
And guys, coming into this race, David Malukas had led 33 laps in his entire IndyCar career. Tonight, 34, 35 and counting. Quite an incredible run from David Malukas so far.
Let's listen to a little bit of radio from Alex Palou, championship leader there in the 10 car.
What did you say about highlighting in 3-4?
We're using it down there yet. Just 1 and 2, just a few guys.
Different tire pressures or wing change for when we've been terrible understeer there.
So that's seemingly a common complaint amongst all of the drivers. Understeer, the tires going off.
Yeah, what typically happens in this race is the teams add more and more front wing with the pit stops to try to deal with the understeer. But if you tip it over, that's when things get crazy and you start to get to oversteer, where the back of the race car wants to come around. So you have to add that wing with some discipline and a little bit of science. As Stingray Robb falls back.
And
Newgarden's going to make a move on O'Ward. He might have a move on Connor Daly. He does.
Absolutely stunning run from Josef Newgarden. And gets Daly at the same time, riding on board, courtesy of PPG.
And this is the beauty of short track racing. As soon as you catch up to those lap cars, which happens quickly on a 1.25 mile track, as Daly now looks to come back on Newgarden, not quite close enough, but you can get that checkup in momentum. If you've got to slow down for the lap car in front, Josef was just far enough back. He could keep his momentum up, roll it through the corner, got 2 cars for the price of 1. That's going to be a theme all night long.
The experience of Josef Newgarden, the knowledge of this track. He has won here more than any driver in this field, more than any driver in history, as now Pato O'Ward puts the move on Graham Rahal.
So now it is Team Penske, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. This is what we expected, a turnaround night for Team Penske, uncharacteristically not in the top of the championship at the midpoint of the season here. They are flexing big time right now.
Graham Rahal peeling down into pit lane. Going to be one of the early pitters.
That is early because he already stopped once before under caution.
It's only about 30 laps on this stint. That's crazy.
There's the replay then of Newgarden putting those moves in. As you say, guys, as everyone checked up ahead, he was able to carry that momentum, make those positions up. Instinctive and incisive from Josef Newgarden.
Oftentimes reflective of the relationship Newgarden has with his spotter that would have been giving them the information, and so bold, brave from Newgarden, because James, you know, the rubber starts to build, the marbles, the spent rubber off the tires starts to accumulate onto that high line, now 42 laps in.
But that's what you see is those 3 cars on the bottom, they were all in line, just taking downforce away from one another. Josef hanging it up high, able to keep the air on the car, max downforce, max speed through the corner.
And the question is, well, why wouldn't everybody do that? Because it's risky. It is risky up high. In fact, Newgarden, even though he won last year, he had a half spin from that exact move, that same situation, getting a little too high where the track gets sort of light gray to the high line. That's where that spent rubber, those marbles, you can start to see them there closely on the track, the little black specks.
And you talked about it, T-Bell. This was the spin from last year that Josef Newgarden had on his way to his 5th victory. Just got a little bit high in turn 2 in that lighter gray. You can see the spent rubber, the marbles up there, spins the car around, manages to not hit anything, which is almost unheard of at a place like Gateway. Recovers, rebounds, brings himself back to the front of the field and captures his 5th win. But that's what can happen if you get just a little bit too high. So flirting with that second lane is risky.
We said at the top of the show, Chevrolet have not won a race all season. Right now, Chevrolet-powered cars occupy the top 6 places. Kirkwood, the highest running Honda runner, in 7th for Andretti.
This is where it starts to get a little harder for David Malukas to work his way through traffic. He should not be anxious. He should not be in a hurry. He has a 3.5-second lead over Will Power right now, so he's going to choose wisely when to press. I think he'll only press if he feels like Power is really closing on him. If not, he can just be patient right now.
What are the teams thinking about strategy? Why don't we go inside the cockpit and find out? Oh, and that is Will Power up into the wall.
Running in 2nd place, we were just talking about it, a 3.5-second gap to David Malukas, and terminal damage to the number 12.
And you have to wonder if he got high going around a lap car and got into that exact area we were just discussing, the marbles and light gray area. He's going to try to nurse this thing back to pit lane and see if they can fix the steering arm on the right front suspension from the wall contact.
Did you see where that tire on your left-hand side of your screen is just turning in damage to the suspension where it meets the wheel?
All right, from the outside, there's Power there. No one in front of him.
Just gets high.
Picked up some understeer mid-corner, pushing things hard, it looks like, unless a right front went down. Is there chances right front tire cut down?
It seemed a little peculiar. Let's see if we can see it from the onboard here. If there's anything else, let's listen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you
can see it.
Already can hear the vibration of that tire.
Very, very
nothing he could
rare
do there.
issue. Yeah, just a passenger.
I wonder if he picked up some debris maybe from the DeFrancesco accident earlier in the race.
Possible. Or maybe from the pyrotechnics before the race.
But look, he's potentially not out. I mean, he's doing a good job of wrestling that thing back to pit lane. But you can see both front and rear. You can see the right rear completely freewheeling there, almost not attached to the car.
So at least a steering arm probably and a right rear toe link at a minimum, as Team Penske will go to work and try to diagnose things.
Great drive though to get that back to pit lane, crabbing the whole way around this 1.25 mile oval. Will Power will make it back to the pit lane.
AMR safety team sort of chasing Will Power, trying to figure out if he's going to stop, where he might stop, but it looks like he's made it all the way back in.
Back-to-back crashes for Will Power at St. Louis. We saw the replays of how his race ended last year earlier on in this broadcast. Look at him, full lock left in order to go straight, heading down pit lane. Normally, you're not allowed in pit lane under a caution, unless, of course, it is for damage to your car, and that is one fairly damaged car.
It's allowed. That thing. It's allowed under what's called emergency service, and I would say this healthily qualifies as emergency service for the number 12. Gets it into his pit box.
Actually, very neatly.
And he's thinking points. He's thinking, hey, we might go several laps down. We will go several laps down here, but let's try to diagnose. And just like DeFrancesco went back out on the track, they will hope to get Power's car fixed. The question is, can they do it on pit lane?
Hinch, you've seen something here.
Yeah, let's take a look right here, guys. It's just tough to see, but you can see right in here that that you can see the material from the tire there. That's the cords, part of the fabric. That's the underlayer underneath the rubber. That's a very rare thing to see here in IndyCar.
Pit lane is now open, and critically it comes when? Lap 50, exactly when the first stops were due to take place anyway. What a fortuitous circumstance for all the drivers.
Well, Lucas was doing a great job on the racetrack. Now his team's got to do a great job in pit lane. AJ Foy Racing is going up against some of the best in the business in Team Penske. The 3 crew, the 2 crew are so fast on pit lane.
That 3.5 second lead that he had dissolved to nothing. Kevin.
And the car had a lot of understeer early, but as expected, it's coming to Josef Newgarden, and he is charging. He's making a 4 Firestone tire stop, and he's back out, Georgia.
They pulled the 12 car of Will Power up against the wall. Will's got now Scott McLaughlin now reaches his box. That's Ben Bretzman in his ear. It's 4 tires and fuel for Scott McLaughlin. He's now down and away.
How is AJ Foyt doing against Team Penske?
Nice.
It looked pretty good, but maybe not good enough as McLaughlin got out and a car's on fire.
And again, it's an ECR, and that is the car of Rasmussen. Fire, thankfully, out on Rasmussen's car, but that is the second time we saw it at the Indianapolis 500.
Keep going there, you're good.
We've seen it again here today. How will the order shake out as they leave the pits? McLaughlin looked to have got ahead of Malukas. It was a good stop for AJ Foyt Racing, but when you're going up against Penske, anything less than perfection is never quite enough. Problems also on pit lane for Christian Lundgaard. Will now rejoin at the back of the field. All going on here, 51 of 260. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
They were on the outside, right there at the bottom of the top 10, but it was by design because both of them were on a fuel strategy, trying to extend and trying to go at least 1 to 2 tenths.
Welcome back to St. Louis, where we are still under caution for an accident that befell our pole sitter, Will Power, who's standing by with Georgia.
It's certainly not the way you want it today to end, but what exactly happened?
Yeah, right front tire failure. Man, I felt last night when we were running, we're pretty much flat 2, 3, and 4 every lap. And I was like, man, this is a lot of load. Like when I had a failure at Iowa, I felt the same. And yeah, that actually happened. It was unfortunate for us, but yeah, just blew the front. Man, you're literally flat every lap, 2, 3, 4 here. And then, yeah, nothing I can do there. Unfortunate, feel bad for everyone on the Verizon car. We had a good car, just sitting there saving fuel, getting a big number to try to get that 4th stop. I know Malukas was taken off. Figured he'd just catch traffic and we'd be able to, you know, get to him and probably knock a stop off the race. But nothing was going to stop a tire failure, unfortunately. That's the way it is. But go to the next one, man. See if we can get a win. Like, we're always knocking on the door, but not today.
It's on to Road America for Will Power. Thanks, Will.
Thanks to Will, thanks to Georgia. Sun starting to set here in St. Louis. The lights turning on around the track. Let's have a little look back at what happened here in pit lane. There's the car of Christian Lundgaard.
Why? You cannot reverse. That's an illegal move to reverse, as we see the 21 get some fuel, some excess fuel that hits the exhaust pipes, catches on fire, burns out pretty quickly. But I want to know why the 7 was stopped there.
Almost think like he missed his box and then got it too late. But let's take a look maybe at a different angle. Onboard will tell us.
So this is it, yeah.
Yeah, he just missed it.
He went to go in.
He just sort of got confused, I think, on where he was. But either way, we're about to go green here. Is there a single file again for another restart?
And our new leader is Scott McLaughlin, who gained a place through that pit cycle. Behind him is Lundgaard, who is actually now a lap down. So Malukas third on track, but second in the race. Will need to get past that orange and black McLaren quickly. He makes the move to the inside so that he can go hunting back after Scott McLaughlin.
McLaughlin cleanly in the front as we see 2, almost 3 wide there mid-pack. Everyone just trying to get a sense with their new tires, get them up to temperature, full fuel again. Fanning out Josef Newgarden down below the white line on the back straight, trying to get around Lundgaard.
Finally clears Lundgaard, so now Malukas and McLaughlin up ahead for Newgarden. This is Alexander Rossi and Scott Dixon side by side having a moment.
It's a battle for 12th and 13th on track. This is Pato O'Ward trying to get around his teammate, not helping him out there. Is Connor Daly now back on the prowl, right on the gearbox of O'Ward, who's being held up by his lap-down teammate.
And as a driver, this is right now where you say, Will, please get him out of the way. Help us out. We're having a great night.
Riding on board with Siegel, that is Jacob Abel alongside him for the minor places as things stand at the moment. O'Ward gained a place through the pit cycle. Daly lost a place through that pit cycle as now Rinus VK has a look at the rookie, Louis Foster.
How about Santino Ferrucci going to work on the Meyer-Shank cars on board here? The Bommarito car to the high side of Felix Rosenqvist. Ferrucci up 8 positions, now 10 positions so far. That is close stuff.
Side by side.
You can see Rosenqvist absolutely sawing at the wheel off of 4 there, just trying to hang on to it, and he gets the move done.
But how about AJ Foyt Racing with David Malukas in second and Ferrucci about to join him as he carves his way through the field. AJ Foyt Racing is in a renaissance period as a race team.
They have come to play, and the number 7 pulls into pit lane, has a drive-through penalty for missing his pit and reversing. 60, I'm understanding, has a penalty as well. That, the car of Felix Rosenqvist.
It's such a bummer for Felix Rosenqvist to see the penalty there on the pylon. That's for an unsafe release in pit lane. So guys, your race can be absolutely made or broken in pit lane. It was made for the 3s who got the lead, but broken for a few others.
Problem on a short oval is that time in pit lane, you lose about 37 seconds. The lap time is only 25 seconds. So a lot different than a road or a street circuit. You can go 2 laps down with a drive-through.
Townsend, you mentioned Santino Ferrucci up in the top 10. David Malukas sits second and is trying to hunt down Scott McLaughlin ahead. AJ Foyt Racing have come to play. They have a technological link-up with the Penske team. But they are a small team as things stand in the IndyCar Series, doing a phenomenal job here this weekend, as they have done for the last few races. Malukas starting on the front row in Detroit, and Santino Ferrucci finishing that race on the podium. Malukas finishing second at the Indianapolis 500, a rich vein of form. Down to Jack Harvey on pit lane.
Yeah, just a quick update, Will, on the 21 of Christian Rasmussen. We all saw that fire. I went to ask Ed Carpenter, team owner, what happened, and they said they aren't sure. So what they've done is replace the entire fuel line system from the fuel tank that goes directly into the car. And I'm trying to think of the last time that I've seen a team do that mid-race.
Wow, Rasmussen is not letting that fire slow him down. One shot puts the move on Rinus VK. As I understand, and as you will be able to see, that Felix Rosenqvist didn't come in to take his drive-through penalty. That has now been upgraded to a stop-and-go penalty.
So bizarre as we see Christian Rasmussen there to have a team 2 oval races in a row have a refueling issue as Rasmussen gets a little high. In Indianapolis, we talked about it, Alexander Rossi with a dramatic moment on pit lane. Also, while refueling, everything looked normal. Team inspecting a different issue, and then things absolutely lit off for the number 20 team. Luckily, Rossi was able to climb out, but his day was done. And then today's incident, James, very similar, eerily similar.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of excess fuel top of your screen there, or middle of your screen. Excess fuel, when the fueler pulls out, it drips on to the exhaust pipes, which are sitting just behind or in front of the rear wheel, basically. And that fire, it burns quickly, but the quick thinking from Rasmussen to avoid getting the back of Foster. And we just saw Alex Palou. He's down quite a few spots in that stop because Lundgaard was stopped in front of him. He couldn't get out. So another big loser in pit lane as a result of the Sevens incident was Alex Palou, your championship leader, who's trying to fight his way back.
But here comes Palou back on Rasmussen, looking to make a move. So these two are going to be going at it, I think, for the next several laps.
Rasmussen up to 14th, looking now at Louis Foster in 13th. He didn't race here this time last year, as Palou does try to get back past. Christian Rasmussen will have the low line, have the inside line for the left-hander that follows, and Rasmussen will have to duck back in. I took a tour of the track with him earlier this weekend. He says he absolutely adores it here. He has raced to success at this track in junior formula, and boy, doesn't it show. Look at the confidence and the knowledge of this place to be able to put that move on our championship leader, as now Josef Newgarden all over the attenuator of David Malukas.
Newgarden doing what he did last year, fanning high mid-corner, again trying to pick up as much clean air across his front wing as he's willing to risk running that mid-line through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. He did it masterfully last year. Even though he had a spin, he still made it work to come back and take the win.
We heard from Will Power earlier saying that his mindset in those early laps was just think about the fuel. Save fuel. Don't go hammering out after David Malukas as he led. Has Malukas' mindset now shifted? Do I need to win this race by leading every single lap, or should I now start thinking about the fuel? Can I just sit here and plot my course, because we have still 190 laps of this contest left to run?
I think one of the great things about the partnership between AJ Foyt Racing and Team Penske is the information a young driver like David Malukas is able to glean from those champions, those race winners with Newgarden, Power, and McLaughlin. He can study, what did they do in my situation, leading, running up front? How did they adjust the balance? How hard did they press? And I think Malukas is an incredibly quick learner with all that information.
Yeah, he's definitely a quick study. We've seen that right from his rookie season with Dalecoin Racing back a few years ago, especially here at Gateway. But you know, I think of the radio transmissions we were hearing from Newgarden in that first stint. Too much understeer, but wasn't getting panicked about it. I'd love to hear what Malukas' voice is like right now as he starts to kind of fall back into the clutches of the two-time champion. It's about staying cool, because like you say, 180-something laps left still to go in this race. You just got to stay calm, keep working on your race car, because this track is going to evolve and change a lot as this night goes on.
And look at the run that Newgarden has now. Malukas slid up high, Newgarden stayed low, and now going to go low.
Newgarden to put the move for second place on David Malukas. Takes that away from him. It is a Penske 1-2. McLaughlin from Newgarden. Malukas falls to third, but sits there hanging on to the rear wing as Rasmussen does Palou, does Eilert, and will go after Louis Foster. Rasmussen's having fun today, I'll tell you.
Most aggressive driver on track right now, but James, with every lap, that high line gets more and more dirty with the spent rubber coming off the tires. Rasmussen has to keep that in mind. He's got to actually taper his aggression with every lap, knowing that the line is getting more and more narrow where he can run.
But if you keep seeing all this side-by-side racing like we're seeing with Palou and Eilert, and now we see him pull out on Foster, it's going to keep that high line a little bit cleaner, a little bit longer, and allow this type of racing. But Rasmussen, one of the most exciting drivers on an oval to watch.
And since the restart, he's the man on the move. 7 places gained since that restart on lap 57. 20 laps, 7 positions. Keep your eyes on Christian Rasmussen. Saturday, it's baseball night in America with two of the league's biggest bats on deck as Pete Alonso and the Mets take on Kyle Schwarber and the Phillies. Or the Royals battle the Padres. Check local listings for the game in your area Saturday at 7 Eastern on Fox. And as he's leading, Scott McLaughlin, he had a decent week where he went and got himself his own personalized glove, getting into baseball himself. Leading Josef Newgarden by almost a second as Rasmussen comes into pit lane.
This is not good. This is not in the window. I'm a little surprised, very surprised to see Rasmussen pitting seemingly off strategy. I think he'd want to make it to lap 105 on this stop.
Maybe he didn't get all the fuel he needed. Maybe some of that fire might have been sort of an early release of the fuel hose, a little dribble out there and setting on fire. No wonder he was putting on the moves. He was lighter than anybody else out on track. He had made up his way past Santino Ferrucci to sit in the top 10 by the time he came in to the pits. He then now off strategy, but clearly with a very quick car underneath him.
And he comes out right ahead of Scott McLaughlin. This will be interesting.
Well, this is important because that...
Wow,
that's close. Now Josef Newgarden's coming, guys. That's what we talked about. If you get checked up on these short tracks, you lose your momentum.
McLaughlin did get checked up. Newgarden will take the advantage. Moves to the inside, wants to find his way through, but thinks better of it. The last thing you want to do is get into contact with your teammate, but McLaughlin getting close to losing the lead there.
That was aggressive stuff from Christian Rasmussen. I am sure McLaughlin will be furious about how hard Rasmussen fired it in to turn 3 because he is a lap down as now McLaughlin clears Stingray Robb and will set his sights on going and getting Rasmussen to put him 2 laps down. I understand how hard he was fighting, but that's as close as it gets to a total disaster for the race leader.
Risky move for sure, and he was trying to stop himself from going 2 laps down, but remember, he's now got fresh Firestone, so I'm not sure that McLaughlin will be able to just catch up to and drive around him, as now Stingray Robb side by side here with Newgarden as Newgarden tries to clear that lap car as well, which he does easily into turn 1.
Understand from pit lane, Will, that you are absolutely right that they were short on the last stop with Christian Rasmussen. That explains why he had to come in early. Despite being fast, though, he's going to be in that sort of awkward, weird off strategy. Probably going to have to save some fuel. But, James, you're right on the new tires. Look at the gap that he's put on Scott McLaughlin.
Probably another 10, 15 laps until the majority of the field have to come in to refill Shell 100% renewable fuel. But McLaughlin leading the way from Newgarden. 0.8 is the gap. Malukas 2 seconds behind. Then it's O'Ward, Daly still sitting pretty in the top 5. Kyle Kirkwood is 6th. Then Herta, Armstrong, Ferrucci, and rookie Louis Foster completing the top 10.
And remember, guys, as we ride on board the Dex imaging machine of Scott McLaughlin, this was your pole sitter here last year and led a majority of the race until a late caution, a late pit stop. He lost the battle off pit lane to this guy here, Josef Newgarden, who went on to win. And Kevin, what's happening with the number 2 PPG machine?
So right before he went on the attack a few laps ago with Scott McLaughlin, he was asking his spotter about available lanes, gave it a go. He wanted another half turn of front wing at the next stop. After he started charging a little bit, he said, the car is good, don't touch it on the next stop.
Let's take a look at what Kevin was talking about here. This is Rasmussen again, coming out of the pits, cold tires, but new tires, and he just fires it into 3, full commitment there. I'm sure it caught Scott McLaughlin by surprise as you saw him wiggle, but that big loss of momentum with a hard-charging Newgarden almost gave up the point for McLaughlin. But Newgarden again showing great patience tonight.
And he wasn't showing that last night when we had practice this exact same time of day. McLaughlin and Newgarden came pretty close on a number of occasions, and Josef was none too pleased with his teammate. Now he's back on his rear wing and looking to make his way through.
And at this stage, it's all about doing the opposite of the car in front. So you saw there McLaughlin running about a half car width up. Newgarden takes that free air down at the bottom of the racetrack. Conversely, if he decides to hang it up high, he's going to go down low. He's going to try to hang it up high. Anything you can do to keep half of your front wing into cleaner air is going to help you. And you said it, patience is the name of the game, and we've seen that in spades from Josef Newgarden over the last few years on these short ovals.
This is Felix Rosenqvist in front of McLaughlin. Remember, Rosenqvist a lap down from that penalty for unsafe pit release earlier in the race, but McLaughlin now 45 laps on his Firestones. This is deep into the stint. They're holding up well, but the grip does start to fall off a little bit.
Newgarden makes easier work of Rosenqvist, as McLaughlin just sliding a little bit high through the mid part of the corner, not sticking as low as he would have liked. Stunning sunset here in St. Louis. The golds and the pinks of the sky.
Beautiful, seeing that off of turn 4. A glorious night. This place is packed too. It's great to see the fans come out and join us on a Sunday night. And you just know that when it comes time for, if it's green flag pit stops here, it's going to get wild on pit lane between these two Penske teammates. And it's getting wild with McLaren, as Nolan Siegel being very defensive to Scott McLaughlin. Siegel did not want to go a lap down.
I mean, there's defense, and then there's almost forcing the race leader over that white line, a line you're not allowed to cross during the race, as Newgarden shows Nolan Siegel his elbows and makes his way through.
I got to be honest, that was a bit sloppy from Nolan Siegel, because McLaughlin had pulled out pretty early off of 2, and you cannot move in reaction to the move of the car behind, and I feel like he did that. Let's take a look here. You see McLaughlin now, he's moved out, and then they keep just forcing him over. That's a...
You call it sloppy, I'd call that naughty.
Yeah, it's one of the two.
I call that a penalty. If I was in race control, I'd look at that and say it was absolutely in reaction to, as Newgarden has a look on McLaughlin. McLaughlin now stacked up in traffic. And Newgarden might have a shot the next lap.
And 3 Ganassis ahead of the Penske race leader. Simpson in the middle, Palou to the right. That's Rahal to the right, as Newgarden now comes into the pit, decides to get himself out of the traffic, out of the mess, and into clean air. That's a smart move from Josef Newgarden and the number 2 crew.
This is the undercut. So what Newgarden's banking on is that McLaughlin's going to be caught up in this lap traffic, Kevin.
And he has to go around Connor Daly's tires for that team setup. He's coming in as well. This looks like a solid stop for Newgarden, Georgia.
So Newgarden will hope to find clean air. Sorry, Georgia.
David Malukas now to the attention of his team. They were telling him about track temperatures and using his tools before that previously. Did not take any wing out of that car, and he's hitting the track.
Great stops from the AJ Foyt crew, both of them so far today. Jack, you're down there with O'Ward.
Yeah, I'm literally just watching this stop. I managed to talk to the team. They said as this track temperature is changing, Pato actually got a little bit loose and he was getting a little bit more nervous. They took some front wing out. He's racing his teammate down pit lane.
Race leader into pit lane. Scott McLaughlin needs a fast stop because his teammate was the first to bite the bullet and come in on lap 101. Georgia.
And it's words like fantastic, nice job, great job from Ben Bretzman to Scott McLaughlin. And now it's the team's turn to shine. This pit stop is going to be ever so important for your race leader. He is in. They're going to do 4 tires and fuel for Scott McLaughlin. They were giving him notes on where Josef Newgarden was before this, but this pit stop ever so impressive from the team. He's down and away.
Newgarden is coming through 3 into 4 down the start finish stretch. We will watch where McLaughlin leaves the pit lane and where he comes out in relation to his teammate.
Here he comes. It's an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit, but
Newgarden
is well ahead. That undercut working to great effect.
And now Malukas is going to go around the number 3 as well, so that's 2 positions lost effectively on that exchange for Scott McLaughlin.
The only benefit for McLaughlin is going a little bit longer, which shortens the fuel window a little bit for him. But Newgarden finding the clean track and using the speed from that clean track to make that strategy work.
Smart move from Josef Newgarden from the number 2 team. Gets him out on track, gets the heat into the tires, gets the pace, as Nolan Siegel in your bottom screen there has a drive-through penalty for blocking think we saw that one coming. That was a bit naughty from Nolan Siegel as Josef Newgarden continues to put the moves on track. Newgarden then ahead of Malukas, ahead of McLaughlin, but it's Alexander Rossi who leads the race at the moment for Ed Carpenter Racing from Rinus VK and Scott Dixon. There's a replay of McLaughlin coming out. Newgarden already miles ahead of him, and here comes Malukas on the hot tires, straight through.
And what that's told all these teams, guys, is that doing that undercut, that pitting earlier strategy, that buys you track position. But you can't do it every stint, Townsend, or eventually your last stint is going to be so long, you'll have to save so much fuel, but still a lot learned for all these teams on that exchange.
We'll be back here to St. Louis. Back to St. Louis. Well, will this be a gateway to a season turnaround for Josef Newgarden? He has won 17 of his 31 wins on oval tracks. He won here in 2024, has in fact won 4 of the last 5 races on this circuit. His 5 wins here are the most of all time for any driver in the NTT INDYCAR Series in St. Louis.
Well, he's almost halfway there. He has the car, he has the team, and he has the pedigree. And he has a gorgeous sunset to potentially celebrate with, but there is a long way to go. And many obstacles between Newgarden and a race win tonight, with as much drama as we've already seen, including just getting through lap traffic.
Yeah, there certainly is, but at the same time, you saw that graphic. 49 laps led for all of Team Penske throughout the first 7 races of the season. 60 laps led already this evening, so this has been a real turnaround. They're running first and third. Power was up there running second when he had his issues. And guys, look at how he's cutting through this traffic. The next car that he's about to put a lap down, that's Alex Palou,
who is 13th. This is not the weekend that we might expect from the championship leader, who started this season off with such crushing dominance, who of course took his first oval win, his first Indianapolis 500 just a few weeks ago. It was looking like everything was running smoothly. He was nerfed out of the race in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and from there it's kind of started to unravel a little bit for him. This not the weekend for Ganassi, but it may be the weekend for Penske, Kevin.
And when I talked with Josef Newgarden on Friday, he actually seemed in really good spirits considering this has statistically been an awful season so far. But he said, we've had pace a lot of the time. I'm not going to change my mindset. He understands championship is not going to be in the picture this year. So it's not just go for bust and go for wins. If you do that, you get yourself in trouble. It's take care of business as he looks to be able to try to lap the championship leader, Alex Palou, right here, going to the inside. The car is always good here, just trying to get that first win and get that season started.
Yeah, and there was an awful lot going on ahead of him as he does put the move up the inside of Alex Palou. Somebody right down in the dirt on the way into turn one as Palou looks to put the move on Rahal, and Josef Newgarden has to bide his time and think better of it.
Palou saying, you might be close to lapping me, but it's not going to be up in here on this lap, as Palou fiercely defending. Brilliant job protecting the draft off Graham Rahal, and now Palou gives himself a little bit of breathing room.
I think that was a fight between Alexander Rossi and Louis Foster up ahead.
Yeah, it's getting crazy there between Foster and Rossi. They were driving each other down to the dirt, and that's the kind of thing, if you're Josef Newgarden, you're looking up ahead and you're like, okay, I think I might just chill right now as some of that cage rage is starting to break out as darkness falls. Let's take a look at what happened.
So it's Rahal who's been circulating slowly all night. Foster looks to the inside of Rossi.
And nearly gets all the way up into that light gray where we have seen can be absolutely devastating. So here's the onboard from Rossi getting that draft off of Rahal. Defends against Foster, but cameras looking, not expecting Foster to try to go inside.
Now you might wonder, okay, is that a block like what we saw from Nolan Siegel? This is a little different. Rossi being proactive, I believe, getting to the inside first. He didn't react, he was proactive. That's within the rules.
Rahal's pace at the moment is horrible. He's down in the 163 mile an hour for the lap. Everybody else up in the 165s and north of that. Rahal just doesn't have any pace at all.
Yeah, the one cure machine of Graham Rahal here just struggling 3 laps down already. Actually make that 4 laps down.
Wow.
And I can tell you guys, when you've got a car that's not handling well on a short oval like this in IndyCar, it is a miserable night.
And a long night.
Just trying to survive, really trying to stay out of the way, pick up points from cars having trouble, any attrition. But for Graham, this is a survival mode and just not the way he wanted to celebrate his 300th start in the IndyCar Series.
Riding on board with PNC Bank and Scott Dixon as he's making a move on Malukas. Did Malukas have to check up big?
Now, remember, Dixon is a lap down. That's not for position. This is Malukas trying to get through this stretch of lap down cars.
I'm not used to hearing Scott Dixon being a lap down on a track like this.
We're having, I think, some issues with data being sent to our timing pylon because McLaughlin is jumping up and jumping down.
This Pato Award starting to get closer to Scott McLaughlin. Riding on board thanks to Arrow, and there's McLaughlin kind of fading up and opens up some clean air for Award down low. Now, Scott McLaughlin 2 laps better on fuel to his teammate Josef Newgarden. Does he try to return the strategy favor and undercut on the next set of stops? He's got a little bit more fuel window to work with because he stopped 2 laps later. It means that if he stops before Newgarden, he can find clean air and maybe go faster on the track while Newgarden gets caught in traffic. So the undercut is pitting earlier than the car you're competing with.
So much of the strategy on these short tracks, guys, is timing. It's timing for the drivers on the racetrack, timing where you get through lap traffic, where you make your passes to not have that loss of momentum, and then timing from pit wall. When are you calling your driver in? You've got to take into account where they're going to come out on track. Are they going to come out in a mess of traffic? Are they going to make it out into some clean air and be able to run some fast laps? Is Award now getting a nice run? Big slide. Huge save from
My
Pato.
word. Massive moment for the number 5 car of Pato Award. Brilliant onboard courtesy of Arrow, but that was a monster save from Pato Award.
That is just another day in the life of Pato Award on an oval. Nobody able to hang it out more than this guy and be able to save it. Most importantly, let's take a look from outside the cockpit. That was huge slip angle.
The highlight reel we could put together of Pato O'Ward saves on an oval. I mean, if he look at the tire marks he's leaving coming off a 2 there.
That's impressive.
If he had $1 for every time he had a big save on an oval, he could buy a bigger jet. I mean, this guy is so good at running the car loose, which is sometimes what you have to do to get the lap time, especially to navigate traffic. And it's not slowing him down at all. It hasn't spooked Pato.
So it's still Newgarden who leads to the tune of 6 seconds from David Malukas. Scott McLaughlin is third. Pato O'Ward is fourth. Rasmussen, who's slightly off strategy, sits fifth. That is 20 places up from where he started. Then Connor Daly, Kyle Kirkwood, Colton Herta, Santino Ferrucci, and Louis Foster rounding out the top 10.
Oh, huge accident. Josef Newgarden upside down on the front straight.
Absolutely massive. Josef Newgarden is upside down on the straight.
AMR safety team jumps immediately over the wall to talk to the driver.
We're hearing he's radioed in and is okay.
It was going picture perfect for Josef Newgarden. Now an absolute nightmare scenario as all the cars on the front straight trying to navigate the minefield of carbon fiber and debris. I imagine they might come through pit lane.
That is right at start finish.
Right ahead of our commentary position, looking down onto the start finish stretch. And that is the car of Louis Foster.
And it gives you some idea of how fast these cars are going that Newgarden is able to get halfway down the front straightaway after skidding upside down as the AMR team attends to Louis Foster there.
Based on the damage I see on the right side of his car, I wonder if Newgarden was trying to pass around the outside of 4. Foster maybe didn't see him coming and close the door.
Now, typically what happens here is the AMR team will just pick him up to 90 degrees to this point to be able to get Newgarden out safely, or will they let the whole car go down? It's about 1,800 pounds plus the driver, almost 2,000 pounds. Look at these guys doing an amazing job to softly put the car down and protect Newgarden. Small fire breaking out at the back of the car.
And we are so grateful for the AMR safety team who come with us to every NTT INDYCAR Series race. Always on the scene in incredibly quick time, always impeccable in their work.
And unfortunately for Louis Foster, these are 2 big hits in back-to-back races. He had a massive impact at Detroit, and there's Newgarden climbing out.
Great to see both drivers out of the car, but that is your race leader. And Louis Foster, who was on for a great result in 10th as well. The crowd showed their appreciation and relief with their applause for both. And I feel for both.
And Louis just composing himself here. Remember, this is his first short oval. Oh, no. So he got up into the marbles, into that spent rubber on his own, damaged the car. And you're a passenger as a driver at that moment.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
And Josef absolutely nowhere to go. Look at that.
Oh, my goodness.
I've never seen anything like that on a short oval.
Not at all. God, he could have easily cleared the pit wall and ended up crashing down pit lane. And there you see not only the roll bar, but the aero screen halo device protecting Newgarden as the shower of sparks is flooding the cockpit.
A nice big gap between the driver's helmet, and you see the right rear of Foster's was so broken he had no control of that car. And Josef just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But I'm reminded again of the safety of these cars. That is a T-bone impact, which is one of the worst impacts that you can see on a racetrack. How much of that nose is left intact on Josef's car? How much of the rear of Louis Foster's car remains intact as well, showing once again the strength of these Dallara chassis. And look at that, as the sparks come off, you see the strength of that halo and that aero screen.
Let's take a look on board.
Oh, that is a terrifying view from Josef Newgarden. You're on an oval, you're doing over 170 miles an hour, and there's a car broadside in front of you.
And you know what? The green light was on for a very long time. After Foster made contact,
yeah, the yellow should
5 or 6 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And Newgarden would have no idea.
Well, he would have seen him, but still, it's...
Yeah, but you're not looking, he's looking to make a move.
Still green.
Yeah.
How was the yellow not called sooner?
Well, it's a system that relies on spotters and communication, and sometimes when you're up tucked into the wall at turn 4, it's sometimes a little hard to see. Look at the fuel coming out of the race car, guys.
Newgarden and Foster, thankfully both okay. We are back under caution here in St. Louis after a terrifying accident befalling them both. The road to 2026 continues with the Gold Cup this Thursday as the Stars and Stripes face off against Middle East powerhouse Saudi Arabia. No easy path, no second chances. Thursday at 9 Eastern on FS1. And we are still under caution here in St. Louis for a massive accident that has befallen the race leader and the man in 10th place at the time, Louis Foster, who went up and into the wall, lost control, spun back across the track. Nowhere to go for Josef Newgarden. Both fortunate to be okay, but they're out of the cars and on their way to the medical center. We sit on board with Josef Newgarden. And guys, the worrying thing for me, we counted it in the break, 6 seconds between Foster going up into the wall and the point of contact between those two cars. And it was only at the very last moment, almost as they were about to make contact, that the track went yellow.
Yeah, nothing that Josef Newgarden could do here. He would not have a chance to do anything except pull his hands off the wheel and try to brace himself for what would be a huge impact. It's so happy that both drivers were able to climb out of their cars. And again, I have to point out that Louis Foster had an accident that wasn't his fault at all 2 weeks ago at Detroit, another massive impact. So 2 huge hits for a rookie driver.
I mean, he said that Detroit was the biggest crash of his career, biggest impact of his career. I wonder how he feels after this.
Look at Newgarden's left hand pushed right past the steering wheel. He was not, he didn't even have time to pull his hands back and cross his chest, which is the normal sort of clenched fist motion when you know you're going to hit hard.
That, the remnants of the number 2 Penske coming back to pit lane, and after an accident of that ferocity, once again, I'm shocked with how much of that car is intact.
Huge credit to Dallara, huge credit to IndyCar, huge credit to the AMR safety team for all the work that's gone into these race cars, to these race tracks, to allow drivers to walk away, you know, uninjured from accidents of that magnitude. And, you know, we saw that long shot of pit lane. It's going to be another yellow flag shootout on pit road. We saw a lot of drama down there in that last one. It was bad for Rasmussen, it was bad for Lundgaard rather, and it was bad for Alex Palou.
And you look at the season that Josef Newgarden's had, worst season of his career in terms of bad luck. Long Beach seatbelt came loose. Indy 500 was going from last on the row to 5th place, on his way to the front, had the fuel pump issue. Then this totally unexpected crash tonight. And for Team Penske, guys, this was going to be their turnaround night. This was going to be their chance to set things straight. And now 2 of their 3 top running drivers out of this thing when you think about Will Power's issues early on.
And we are only just past halfway of this 260-lap contest, now firmly under the lights in St. Louis. Thank you for joining us wherever you are joining us from here on Fox. Track almost clear. An incredible job once again, as the barriers now need to be repaired, of course, down there on pit lane.
So we talk about these safety improvements to not just the cars, but the racetracks. That's the safer barrier on the inside of the racetrack as well. It's the inside wall. So those are giant foam absorbing blocks that the track has replacements of. So after an impact, you check the steel structure that's on this side, the track side of the wall. And then, like I said, those absorbing blocks go in the middle. After an impact, they replace them.
And then concrete, immovable concrete on the inside. And This crew very well practiced at making quick repairs to that safer barrier. And IndyCar will be forced to wait until all of this work is done before opening pit lane. And not really bad news for the front runners, because they'll want to extend this as long as possible, this caution, to get into the window for pit stops. They really want to be to about lap 150 to make this work.
And they couldn't drive the cars down pit lane to avoid the front straight because there was a bunch of debris in pit lane as well.
Yeah,
shows you the proximity of that accident.
And this is actually a really fortuitous break here for Christian Rasmussen because of that short fill situation. The longer this yellow extends, if Rasmussen has enough gas to make it, and I think he will, he'll be pitting with the leaders and be right back on strategy.
Bang on. And here's the wild thing. We've lost 2 Penske's from this race, and yet we still have a top 5 comprised entirely of Chevrolet runners. Malukas, Rasmussen, McLaughlin, O'Ward, and Connor Daly.
And if you're Connor Daly or David Malukas looking for your very first IndyCar win, all of a sudden the odds have gone way up with Newgarden power out of this thing.
Well, our 1-2. Neither of them have ever won an IndyCar race. Daly, of course, looking to win his first as well. 3 of those top 5. It would be a red letter day. So pits will be open next time round, despite the fact we still have the AMR crew out on the track, as almost everybody getting ready to receive their drivers.
So this is it for Christian Rasmussen. Absolutely now back on strategy with everyone. And Ed Carpenter Racing will go to work battling AJ Foyt and Team Penske and Arrow McLaren for those top 4 spots. Here they come.
Now, not everybody choosing to come in and pit. The Ganassis staying out. That of Scott Dixon will probably come around next time.
Yeah, the cars staying out are usually out there to get a lap back on the wave around. So those are the lap down cars as all the leaders now head to pit lane. We'll start with Jack.
The number 5 of Pato O'Ward, they made a front wing adjustment on that previous stop. He reported the car was in a much better window. Track temp still coming down, and they think that that is going to suit them. Georgina.
The first thing Scott McLaughlin wanted to know was if his teammate Josef Newgarden was okay. He's asked for tires and a tear-up on this pit stop, and on the previous one he had problems getting it into gear. This one, better. Now David Malukas, they're going to make tire pressure adjustments and take half a turn of wing out.
Thank you, guys. Malukas then actually leads the pack through with McLaughlin. O'Ward, Rasmussen has fallen back a couple of places, and Daly. That is the 5 who were leading. They still lead, but in a slightly shaken up order. There is Josef Newgarden, who walks away after that monstrous accident. And he is okay, but he doesn't want to talk to anybody at the moment other than just his team. And I think that's probably pretty understandable after an impact of that size.
So a much cleaner run through pit lane this time for the group.
Let's take a look at what happened during that pit stop exchange.
Wow.
As Scott McLaughlin launches right up into the path of Pato O'Ward and then goes low on David Malukas. But Malukas, I think, will be the first to the line.
But I think Malukas might be under investigation for an unsafe release. He went from his pit box straight into the lane on the far right. That's not something you're allowed to do. And McLaughlin had to take avoiding action. I wouldn't be surprised if they're being looked at.
But McLaughlin also shot straight to the high line in front of Pato O'Ward.
On board with McLaughlin. Narrowly avoids Pato.
Little less agreed, but man, look how close McLaughlin had to get to the crew of Colt Herta.
Not a lot of room for anybody. This is a lot like Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's a bizarre situation. I wouldn't want to be having to make that call right now.
We saw Josef Newgarden walking away. We saw Louis Foster, thankfully, out of his car as well. He's standing by with Kevin Lee.
And Louis Foster has told me he's okay. Do you know what happened?
Yeah, we were running the highline all race. The 45 Desnuda Honda was really, really quick. Yeah, I think 1 minute 2 laps too long trying the highline. I got up behind Malukas, or no, it was Ferrucci. Got a bit of a wiggle. Had wiggles all race there, but yeah, just got a bit too high onto the dark stuff. I think you can see it there. I have a wiggle right here, and then I just got into the marbles and was a complete passenger. So at that point, I bent my toe link. I just couldn't stop the car from spinning there, and obviously pretty scary impact for both myself and Josef. Glad he's okay, but yeah, really, really annoying because we were fast, man. We were really fast. Just shame I had to end that way. Marbles caught me out, but anyway.
Louis Foster was running right around the top 10. Unfortunately, night done early.
Thank you, guys, and our thanks to Louis for chatting to us and to Kevin. So the race off pit load, Maluka stayed where he was. McLaughlin gained a place, Award gained a place, which meant that Rasmussen dropped 2. Daly stayed where he was. Kirkwood, Herta, Ferrucci, Armstrong all stayed where they were. Palou gained 1.
And now all the cars that had been a lap down got the wave around, and because there's so many cars down a lap, it's still a pretty busy pit lane here. Scott Dixon rather leading that field. You see Kiffin Simpson into his box there. One of the Premas, that's Callum Ilott.
And interestingly, as these pit stops are going on, I'm hearing that Scott McLaughlin's stop, not that of David Malukas, McLaughlin's stop is actually under review.
Wow. Can you imagine if all 3 Team Penske cars were out of this thing, or at least if McLaughlin was penalized, as Kiffin Simpson is side by side there? Is that Stingray Rob?
The way Penske season is going, Townsend, frankly, yeah, I can't imagine
just
it.
Crazy. I mean, so dominant. They had everything lined up, maybe even for a 1-2-3 tonight.
So the cars exit pit lane, and it is Malukas who leads from McLaughlin and Award under caution. Rasmussen down to 4th, Connor Daly is 5th. Then Kirkwood and Herta, Ferrucci and Armstrong, Palou in 10th.
Understand that Christian Rasmussen is being sent to the rear for pitting under a closed pit for emergency service.
You mentioned it, T-Bell. If he had enough fuel, that was the perfect scenario for him. But because we had to circulate under caution for so long before the pits opened, I think he probably had to run. He ran out of fuel.
He must have had to stop.
He had to stop for a quick splash.
Oh, man.
And that leads to falling to the back of the field under a full course caution.
And what a shame for him, because it looked like that gamble, necessitated by the short fill earlier on in the race, it looked like that was going to be an absolutely perfect play for him. But I tell you, if anyone can make up the places today, Rasmussen has looked phenomenal out there on track. And now with the added anger, the added angst, Townsend, you were talking about it right at the top of the show.
Guys, the number 3, Scott McLaughlin, is falling back.
How far? I mean, it's obviously not a drive-through.
Behind the 27.
Yeah.
So he's fallen down to 5th place, I believe.
So that's 3 places.
So 3-place penalty. But do we know specifically what the infraction was?
We assume it was pit lane, but
I heard it was a pit lane infraction. So
we'll wait to hear.
But what infraction? Was it unsafe release?
Oh, no, look at this.
4 as well.
Boy, if this was an NFL game, there'd be yellow flags flying left, right, and center for improper lane usage. This is what we were talking about, is just going straight to the high line. That's what McLaughlin did on Award.
Yeah, so we're being told it's improper lane usage, I guess, for both going straight out into the fast lane out of their box. It's so tough, and it's so tight when you have a car right in front of you. I know McLaughlin, I think, made a better effort to keep it in the transition lane, but had that oversteer moment, which kind of pushed him in. Malukas went straight out, but again, 3 positions, so those 2 still nose to tail.
So, guys, clear this up for anyone who's new to the sport, new to what happens here in IndyCar, particularly here on oval races. When you leave your pit box, there are those 2 lanes to the right-hand side.
There's the transition lane, which is immediately between the pit boxes and the racetrack, and then you have the fast lane. When you leave the pit, you leave your pit boxes, which are obviously right here. Then you've got the transition lane. You have to go there first before the fast lane. Cars in the fast lane have priority, but now we're going back green.
And we will go green with Pato O'Ward leading from Connor Daly, Carl Kirkwood, David Malukas down to 4th, Scott McLaughlin down to 5th, then Herta Ferrucci, Armstrong Palou, and Alexander Rossi will be your top 10, and O'Ward will take them back to green. And immediately looking racy is David Malukas, who goes to have a look on the inside of Carl Kirkwood down into turn 1, but O'Ward holds the lead. Malukas moves on Kirkwood. Malukas takes P3, and McLaughlin will hope to go through with him as we have contact behind between McLaughlin and Herta.
I think that's Ferrucci and Herta getting together side by side, but miraculously they both continue. How about Connor Daly? Up 13 positions and going for the lead to the high side.
He's been working that top lane all night long. The 5 of O'Ward goes to defend, but Connor doesn't care. He can roll it up high. Can he do it here in 1 and 2?
Keeps his foot stuck in, goes around the long way. Will have to go around the long way, but O'Ward keeps the lead, and Daly goes with him now. Around the outside once again. O'Ward will have to defend on the inside, but Daly will want to go around the high side, keeping his foot in again, and still O'Ward holds him off.
This is the benefit of a long caution. The sweepers, the track sweepers, able to clean up the high side, and Connor Daly knows that, and he's going to try to take advantage.
You got to time it just perfectly. Pato doing a very aggressive job on the defense. Aggressive but fair. Connor trying to keep him pinned down now, entering 3, compromise his entry. And look at Connor working the steering wheel of that number 76.
That wing was so close as O'Ward proactively defends. They're still hitting the oil drive from Newgarden's accident. That's what that puff of smoke is from. Connor not giving up.
Side by side all night long. Another big defense. Pato hasn't been able to enter a single corner from where he's wanted to.
Daly loves this track. Daly loves oval racing, and Daly wants to take the lead from Pato. O'Ward once again goes to take the move around the outside, has the pace advantage this time, and this time takes the lead.
Fantastic stuff. That looks like a battle for the win at the Indy 500, the way they're snaking down the straightaways.
Wonderful move.
Side by side for almost 4 consecutive laps. Just incredible. That's the opportunity you get, like you said, Townsend, after those sweepers have been out, and now Connor looking to just check out and move up.
And now you have 3 hard-charging Americans who have never won an IndyCar race in the top 7. Connor Daly in the lead, David Malukas in 3rd, and Santino Ferrucci into 7th and looking aggressive.
On board now with Ferrucci, who's looking at the back of the number 26 Cambridge machine from Andretti Global. Bommarito Automotive Group on board, giving us a great low-down shot. Here's out the back of Herta's machine, thanks to Cambridge. And they had big contact on that restart. Let's see if we can get another look at that. We saw tire smoke for half the corner.
Fireworks, smoke works between 26 and 14. Ferrucci's right rear getting into that Cambridge side pod of Colton Herta, and then his right rear getting into the left front. I've never seen cars rub that much on an oval without crashing.
Oh boy, touch left front to right front, right rear to left front.
Just stayed glued on him for the entire time. Thought about making it 3 wide into 3. Wow.
Connor Daly leads up 14 places from his P15 start. Pato O'Ward sitting just behind him, and what a couple of weeks, what a month it has been for Connor Daly. Felt that he had the car underneath him to compete for the win at his favorite race on earth, the Indianapolis 500. Ultimately, his tires just jumped off a cliff for him. He picked up some vibrations, and the race came to naught. But for such a long time at Indy, it looked like it could be coming Connor Daly's way. Will today be his day? Under 100 laps remain here in St. Louis. Connor Daly leads, Pato O'Ward. David Malukas is third from Kyle Kirkwood, Scott McLaughlin and Colton Herta. Welcome back to the NTT IndyCar Series from St. Louis, live on Fox. And guys, this is where it gets absolutely fascinating because of where the cautions have fallen, because of when the stops was taken. Can anybody make it to the end on one more stop, or are they going to have to go two?
I think they're going to have to do at least a short fill at the end if it stayed green. But guys, we've already had 3 serious yellows so far. And Kevin, I wonder what you're hearing on chatter, because to me, these guys are going to be about 10 laps short, especially with the pace they're running right now.
Connor Daly about 3 minutes ago was told to change to a different fuel map because when he wanted to extend the gap a little bit, and Connor said, I actually was trying to save, I'll just pick up the pace. And from what I'm hearing, some have thought about trying to do it on one more. They know they can't get there. Everyone is pushing right now.
Great stuff. That's what we want, is guys racing hard all the way to the end. And that's pretty cool that Connor had more speed in the bag.
I think we could see from that restart, if there was one driver that wasn't hanging around, it was Connor Daly. So everyone pushing, they will have to make more stops for Shell 100% renewable fuel. Back on board with Pato O'Ward, courtesy of Arrow. How much would he love, would he need a win this season? He's second in the championship as things stand at the moment. Alex Palou currently down in 9th. A perfect opportunity for Pato.
Not as much as Connor Daly is going to force Pato O'Ward to rip away a win from his clutches there, or David Malukas. I think that's fascinating, right? Of course O'Ward wants to win. Every driver does. But you're talking about 2 guys running first and third that have never won, that could have a career-changing moment tonight. This will be hotly contested down the stretch.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Connor Daly hasn't found himself in this position many times in his 120-plus starts in the IndyCar Series. So for him, it's about staying calm, staying cool, hitting your marks, not letting the situation get to you as we get, as you say, under 100 laps to go. Now riding on the Siemens on board of Kyle Kirkwood, who's made his way up to 4th place. Another driver that's done a great job on the day.
Has never had a podium on an oval. Best career finish of 4th was at Nashville last season on an oval. He currently sits in 4th. There is David Malukas, who for so much of this race led, has been so impressive this last month and particularly this weekend. But there are your leaders: Connor Daly, Pato O'Ward there, David Malukas, Kyle Kirkwood just behind him. And for Malukas, guys, 18 months ago, the world was at his feet. He'd signed with McLaren. It really was looking like the start of something incredibly promising, and an ascent to a position within this sport where he would be able to fight consistently for podiums, for race wins, go after championships. And then an accident in the off-season, a broken hand, the tearing up of that contract with McLaren, and him sitting on the sidelines having to watch the Indy 500 last year from the stands and looking at his career falling apart in front of him. What a march back into this sport to sit now here as he does in this rich vein of form and being spoken about so positively and being linked with one of the biggest names in global motorsport with the Penske Racing Organization.
And this is where you see David O'Neill, the strategist for Connor Daly, having a conversation with his driver and also the numerous engineers that join him on the timing stand. And the conversation is about a couple of things. How much fuel are we going to have left? And Connor, how is the car handling? Is there anything we can do on this potentially last or second to last pit stop to make some adjustments to improve the handling of your car? Connor Daly might be responding, everything's fine, but right now he's got Pato O'Ward trailing. Kevin, what can you tell us from the pits?
It's like you've done this before, Townsend. Dave O'Neill did just ask Connor how the car was. He said not bad, but it's getting a little understeery. They are starting to talk about it, and they asked him to think about what you want at the next stop. They need to get to about 204 to do it on one more. They're not going to get there unless there's caution, so they'll be coming in 10 laps or so.
But one of the things that we heard Jack say in his report down on pit lane, Pato Ward said, hey, as this track cools, our car is getting better. The track temp's still coming down, and we've seen him able to kind of close that gap to Connor Daly as now the real work begins. It's easy when you're out front with clear track. Now he's caught the tail end of the lead lap cars. He's got to start making moves in traffic.
This guy's been getting feisty. We saw the action side by side, touching, rubbing with Santino Ferrucci on that restart. Let's listen to some radio from Colton Herta.
Let's start managing the hybrid, same as we've done before.
Taking an arm away from me right now.
A-firm.
Rob Edwards, the strategist from the Andretti team for Colton Herta, talking about taking care of the hybrid system there. Connor Daly will be probably starting to communicate on the radio, asking Graham Rahal, his former landlord, hey, can you help a former tenant out here? Graham Rahal, couple of laps down right now, 3 laps down in fact, and he's in a position to help out old Connor as he chases his first win.
Daly chasing his first win. O'Ward chasing Daly. It's getting hot here under the lights. We are back at St. Louis, and Christian Rasmussen is having a day of days, my word, since the restart, up 11 places, and he is looking feisty, boys.
He did not like the fact that he had to come into pit lane under a closed pit, serve that penalty for it, and now he's on an absolute charge.
Picking up right where he left off. We are back, and Christian Rasmussen is back in the game. Lap 186. Everybody will have to stop again soon, but let's ride on board with Santino Ferrucci, ride outside the track as Rasmussen, this is Colton Herta actually.
So with again, remember on the
restart, making the move.
The restart, they were very close to one another and nearly contact again. This is on board with Santino.
I think Colton had to check up a little bit out of 4.
And we did hear on the radio Rob Edwards say manage the hybrid situation, so maybe there's a small issue with the 26.
I'll tell you who there isn't an issue with. 21, Rasmussen, up to 6th and hunting down Scott McLaughlin. Guys, there are 73 laps to go. It's not out of the realms of possibility that Rasmussen finds himself up here fighting with these two, our race leaders, Connor Daly and Pato O'Ward.
So now we have 4 drivers absolutely in the mix to win their first IndyCar race tonight. Daly, Malukas, Rasmussen, and Ferrucci on board here thanks to Arrow with Pato O'Ward, who is getting really close to Connor Daly.
For me, what's so interesting is Connor was able to slice through the lead lap cars, the leaders of the race early on. Now he's struggling to even get around lap down cars, or cars that he's trying to put a lap down, and that's allowed Pato O'Ward to close that gap. Likewise, David Malukas now up to the back of Pato O'Ward. So I don't think Connor's quite as happy with his car as he was a little bit earlier in the night, but they still have a pit stop to make some slight adjustments.
Well, one of the reasons for that is that Connor Daly has 47 laps on his tires. Like the lead group is Christian Rasmussen now taking it to Team Penske. Their last hope, Scott McLaughlin hanging on, and I don't know if it's going to happen. Rasmussen to the inside.
Up the inside of Scott McLaughlin, Rasmussen is on an absolute tear. Up to 5th place. Superb, up 19 places from where he started this race, and Connor Daly has come in from the lead.
The driver from Noblesville, Indiana, who has driven for every team other than Penske and Ganassi that's been here, is in position to potentially win for the first time, and he talked about it coming into the weekend. He said the front is giving up a little bit, a half a turn, a front wing in. Daly's back out, but he needs one more stop.
Connor Daly has made 28 passes in this race so far. I caveat that. Rasmussen, 51. Pato O'Ward now into the pits a lap later. Jack Harvey.
The number 5 of Pato O'Ward has been absolutely flying today. He's happy with the balance. I asked his strategist, Nick Snyder. They said there is no fuel saving here. They're going to push as hard as they can. Georgia.
Lucas wants his first win. He's been 2nd here. He's been 3rd here. And now this pit stop is everything from this team. He was told before this stop, no pressure from behind. They're going to take a half turn of wing in, 4 tires. They're going to fill it up with fuel.
Perfect on the marks there for David Malukas. Much better usage of the lanes. Leaving pit lane, leaving the pit box. You see Colton Herta now out as Pato O'Ward dives into the pits.
There's O'Ward, there's Malukas behind him. There is Rasmussen.
This is Pato O'Ward coming out of the pits. Where is Connor Daly? That's the battle right now, but Pato O'Ward has made it in front of Connor Daly with a good gap.
There's Daly on the back of David Malukas and heading down the start-finish stretch.
He's got hotter tires by a lap. Malukas just getting up to speed as the leader after these two pit. Kyle Kirkwood dives into pit lane.
So the big winner from that is Pato O'Ward, who is out ahead and stretching his legs. There is O'Ward, there is Malukas, there is Daly, and behind him, Scott McLaughlin.
So Daly losing 2 positions in that sequence as Kyle Kirkwood is down and away. He'll join the party on the backstretch along with Santino Ferrucci. Rinus VeeKay, the leader, indicated on track right now, but he'll be pitting soon. So it's all about O'Ward, Malukas, and look at Kirkwood. What a stop for the Andretti team.
Absolutely sensational, and Malukas will look to get around him, use the extra heat that he has.
He's high.
Oh, no, he's high. He's up into the barrier. And the yellow out immediately. And that's great to see.
The car looks to be going fairly straight. I'm not sure if he made hard enough contact to bend anything, but great call to get the yellow out. And man, that was a tough moment there. That kid nearly had the race come completely unglued, but what a stop from the 27 crew.
Terrific stop from O'Ward, terrific stop from Kyle Kirkwood. Let's take a quick look up in the marbles. And Malukas, I think you're right. I think his car might be okay.
Excellent reaction from race control. The yellow out here, and we're under caution at St. Louis. Next Sunday, Alex Palou, well, actually, every one of the 27 drivers is looking home to take the checkered flag, aiming to steal the show on the twists and the turns of Road America, the IndyCar Series, next Sunday, 1:30 Eastern on Fox. Looking forward to getting back to Milwaukee. Haven't had me any cheese curds in a long time. Scott Dixon is our current race leader under caution in the number 9 PNC Bank Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing.
If you listen closely, you can hear Scott Dixon pulling the clutch and coasting, trying to save precious fuel so he can make it once the pits open and make his last stop. Let's listen to some radio from Scott McLaughlin.
No, you got one more stop here. Dixon was able to stay out long enough to catch that yellow. He will pit. We will all get waved around. We'll rejoin behind him.
So Dixon, by virtue of staying out and having a lap on the field, he'll essentially get a free pit stop. He'll be able to pit now and still come out in first place.
So Dixon will peel off here, but the question I have is, do any of the other sort of lead strategy cars decide, you know what, the caution's out, let's go and top up right now like Dixon does and go race Dixon, as opposed to staying out and maybe having to pit and splash under green?
Can Dixon make, I know Dixon's amazing, can he make it last 60 laps on fuel?
He can't. He's going to need some caution.
He's going to need some caution, but what we've seen so far tonight is cautions can come. And cautions breed cautions, as we know. So with a restart pending, it could be a risk to take for somebody that's on the back end of the lead lap.
Exactly. That might be somebody like Rinus VK or Christian Lundgaard, perhaps.
4 new tires, full tank of Shell 100% renewable fuel. Scott Dixon is serviced and back out on track. He will join up to the rear of the field. And normal service is resumed. Pato O'Ward will be the race leader from Kyle Kirkwood, who really was the big winner from the last set of stops. Connor Daly, who had a relatively slow stop. Malukas, who hit the wall, is still circulating and seemingly managed to get that hit at just the right angle that it didn't end his day.
And it was just mild enough, I think, to where I wouldn't expect any damage on Malukas's car. So a very fortunate break, not only to just brush the wall, but the fact that the yellow came out immediately to slow the field down. And really, if he lost any positions, it would be mild just to Connor Daly there.
You can see the fatigue a little bit in the eyes of Pato O'Ward. Not him personally, but just, I mean, this is almost 2 hours. These guys have been strapped into these race cars, turning left, very physical here. These fast corners, high downforce. There's a lot of G-force on the driver's body. It's humid outside. It's a very physical contest tonight.
We come off the back of the last oval we raced out, of course, was the Indianapolis 500. We know how tough that is. How difficult, how different is this track compared to the Indianapolis 500? Because we hear oval, we think oval. But they are unique beasts in and of themselves.
They really are. And from a physicality standpoint, certainly Gateway is going to be tougher on the body just because of those cornering forces. The G-forces here significantly higher than Indy. Indy's still a much longer race. So as a mental challenge, it's tough to beat the Indy 500. But this place is tough.
And the biggest difference between Indy 500 and this track is the size of those wings. These are the road course wings, front and rear. Absolutely massive compared to the tiny speedway wings. What does that do? Way more downforce for these things. And it allows the drivers to take bigger risks. The cars can slide around a little bit more. You can get aggressive because you have so much more downforce to help the car grip in the corners.
So Dixon, despite leaving the pits and pulling around to the rear of the field, the rest of the field has now been waved through, and so Scott Dixon will be the leader of the race. Townsend, explain exactly how this works.
Well, because Scott Dixon had yet to make his stop, when everybody else stopped under green flag conditions, Dixon was able to stay on track and circulate by virtue of saving a little bit more fuel earlier. That meant that when this caution came out, Dixon was actually a lap up to the field. And so that's how Scott Dixon is still able to pit and come out in the lead. Let's listen to some more radio.
All right, so we're all getting waved around because Dixon was a lap up. So everybody's getting waved around. We are getting a wave around. just stay in line.
Will, I know it's your first season to IndyCar, but even Kyle Kirkwood, IndyCar race winner, had the same question you did. How's Dixon leading?
He's doing Dixon things, man. That's what Scott Dixon is known for. If you're a new fan of the IndyCar Series, he's a 6-time champion, but he is one of the best in the business at saving fuel, and today it has put him in the catbird seat with 56 laps to go.
But question is, can he stay there? Because he has not been the fastest car, that's for sure.
Smart. Prema topping up with fuel. A couple of these teams topping up with fuel just to try and get their guys to the end.
You called Lundgaard being one of those cars to give it a whirl. If you're at the back end of that lead lap, there's no point not to take a risk. Roll the dice. That way, if there's enough yellow to make it, I mean, from right now, you can make it. Only a small save. Lap 205. That's kind of the get-home lap. 56 laps to go. It'll be less than that by the time we go green. So this is a smart call from these cars.
So the cars who did that were Lundgaard, Graham Rahal, Callum Ilott, and I think it was one of the Meyer Shanks that we just saw in there. It was Felix Rosenquist in the number 60, also Jacob Abel in the 51.
Yeah, so Ilott, Rosenquist, and Lundgaard all still on the lead lap there with a chance to pull this off. Taking a bit of a gamble. This is Nolan Siegel, thanks to NTT data. But Pato O'Ward's going to be one to watch on the restart. Arguably a faster car and driver combination tonight than Scott Dixon.
And the tough thing for Pato is that's Nolan Siegel, his teammate in front of him, who is a lap down. That's not for position. Pato wants to get around him as quickly as possible so he can go after Scott Dixon for the lead.
The only thing is Pato O'Ward has 14 laps on his tires. Scott Dixon has just 5 laps, but those are just under caution. He's barely used those Firestones. They will be sticky, and he'll be fast in the corners.
We ask how he does it. Well, this is Scott Dixon's 410th NTT IndyCar Series race. He has started more races in this championship than anyone in history. 58 wins, 213 top 5 finishes, 301 top 10s. He is a 6-time champion. He is one of the greatest who has ever competed in this championship, and he will lead us back to green. Nolan Siegel sits second on track, but he's not in contention for this race today. His teammate Pato O'Ward sits behind him. Then it's Carl Kirkwood. In the purple car is Connor Daly. As now we go back to green and a little bit of a checkup through the final corner. O'Ward makes the move. Kirkwood goes to the outside. Daly has McLaughlin behind him as well. And Santino Ferrucci getting a little bit squirrely.
And there's contact. That's Rinus VeeKay on the outside. David Malukas down low, but he held onto it. Both of those cars got held up.
4 wide as there's damage to Alex Palou, or maybe he's just on the oil dry. I take that back. Palou's car's okay. Now they're 3 wide. Colton Herta almost crashes.
Huge save from Herta. Contact mid-corner, pitched him sideways. That slowed up more cars off of 4. We're looking at 4 wide into 1.
And up on the inside comes Robert Schwartzman, taking that place from Palou as his teammate Callum Ilott now rides alongside him, but it's Dixon at the front from Carl Kirkwood, and here comes Pato O'Ward.
We talked about the domination of Chevy in the first half of this race, but now it's 2 Hondas at the front. O'Ward, the lead Chevy-powered car.
Kirkwood doing a great job getting around the 5. He's now hot on the heels of Scott Dixon. As you mentioned earlier, Dixon hasn't had the best pace so far, but he does have more fuel on hand than anyone else. But if everyone has to stop still, it's full push all around, and Kirkwood now sitting in a good spot.
Man, that was fierce in the mid to tail of the field on that restart. I can't believe there wasn't another caution there.
So close there with Colton Herta and, David Malukas and
Malukas. Yeah, and unreal. Colton Herta 3 wide mid-corner. That was wild.
But that start, I think I want to say it was McLaughlin maybe out of position a little bit earlier than he should have been. The rules with IndyCar, you have to stay in line until the green flag drops and the race commences. We saw a car out of position early. It would be absolutely crushing for Team Penske if it was Scott McLaughlin. He's the last runner they've got in this race. A race that started with so much promise for the team.
49 to go. Dixon leads Kirkwood from O'Ward, Daly. And guess who? Rasmussen back on a charge again and going after Connor Daly, having gone around Nolan Siegel. But they're in the orange and blue car. This car, the PNC back Honda. Scott Dixon leads. Jack.
I'd managed to speak to Mike Hall just for a second. He was absolutely locked in. It was a simple question. It was, can you make it to the end? He kind of shrugged. I thought he was being coy. He kind of shook his head, said no. However, if there's someone who can make fuel go the distance, it's Scott Dixon. So going to be interested to see how this plays out.
Always has been, always will be Scott Dixon, but all they need is one more good caution, and that still puts him in a much better position than everyone else. But Kyle Kirkwood now absolutely hounding the number 9 machine. We see Mike Hall in the top left of your screen there, watching on anxiously.
And let me tell you, one thing that Scott Dixon is extremely good at is managing the air for the car behind him, and not in a good way. Watch Scott Dixon move his car up the track just a little bit to sort of take the incentive away for Kyle Kirkwood to float high. See that? Dixon running high a little bit right there. That's where his car is happy, but it also makes it a little harder for Kyle Kirkwood to run that half car width up, because Kirkwood doesn't want to get too high into the gray. So Dixon using all of his experience to good effect.
Kirkwood and his teammate Marcus Ericsson had a good Indianapolis 500, but were removed from the results and thrown to the back of the order because a technical infringement was found after the race. Kirkwood, who sits second today, how much he would love the victory on an oval. He's seen as something of a street race specialist, and let me tell you, he hates that. He hates being seen as a one-trick pony. How much he would love the win here on the oval, but to do that, he's going to have to beat potentially the greatest of all time. It's Scott Dixon who leads. Kirkwood and O'Ward complete your top 3. Welcome back to the NTT INDYCAR Series, live from St. Louis here on Fox. Fans out in force, and they have seen quite the contest, and it has been quite the evening. Alex Palou has just pit with 38 to go. Scott Dixon leads from Kyle Kirkwood and Pato O'Ward, but folks, let me tell you, they started this race first, second, and fifth. I'm talking about Team Penske. None of their cars remain in this race. Scott McLaughlin down on pit lane. An issue with his rear right, has retired from this race. Unbelievable for Penske after such a promising start, and Georgia Hennebrey is standing by with Scott McLaughlin.
All 3 Team Penske cars out of this race now. Scott, what happened?
Oh, something broke, I don't know. Left rear and come out. Lucky it happened at a 2, because coming down the straight just went bang. It's like someone hit me. I thought someone was beside me, but my spotter said I was clear, so really bumped everyone on Dex Imaging Chevy. We had a fast car, just not a clean night, but some questionable stuff, man. Like, a couple of times, the Malukas thing pulling out in front of me, us getting the penalty for that. Yeah, just got to look back at it. Very disappointed because we had a really decent car, good run going, but anyway, it is what it is.
Disappointing. Thanks, Scott.
Desperately disappointing day for Penske. Rasmussen on pit lane. We told you just a lap or 2 ago. Alex Palou came in as now Kirkwood is shaping up for a move on Dixon, who himself has to take the move around Graham Rahal side by side, getting close at the front.
Dixon got a little checked up by Graham Rahal, and Dixon really hanging on to his race car now. I'm seeing it start to slide around. His line is getting higher, and Kirkwood's got a shot going into 3.
On fresh tires, you can hide an imbalance in the race car, but as we get 20 laps into this stint, the weaknesses in the number 9 are going to start showing, and the strengths of the 27 and the 5 behind are going to start coming to the top, and this is when Kirkwood needs to attack as they catch the back end of these lap cars.
I think guys like Kirkwood and O'Ward are going to pit with maybe 15 laps to go if it stays green. If so, you only need 15 laps of fuel. That puts extra pressure on the tire changers to get it done as Connor Daly comes in.
And Daly had to react to the fact that Rasmussen had come in to stop. I wonder now if any of the front 3 will come in to react to the fact that Daly has come in.
Ultimately, on this type of racetrack, you want to stay out as late as you possibly can for the risk of a yellow, and exactly what happened to Scott Dixon happening, where he cycled to the front because he stayed out.
Yeah, Connor Daly's going to be a lap down to Scott Dixon as he comes out right now, so that's the incentive on the short ovals, where the lap time is shorter than the time lost on pit lane. The incentive is stay out, hang in there in case a caution comes.
I think when Dixon on the PNC Bank machine has clean air, it's tough to get a run on him if you're Kyle Kirkwood. But once he catches, the next car in line is Christian Rasmussen. He's just about 3/4 of the way up the front straight. That's, I think, when Kirkwood really has a strong opportunity to pounce.
I go back to the line that Scott Dixon's using here, which is a high radius line. Makes it difficult for Kirkwood as they come off the corner. Kirkwood slides up then into that dirty pocket of air for Pato O'Ward here. He looks pretty strong running in 3rd. Similar pit strategy for O'Ward as Kyle Kirkwood. O'Ward slightly more laps, 39 laps on his tires. Kirkwood 37.
So Dixon with the advantage. Kirkwood trying desperately to get around him. O'Ward is 3rd, Ferrucci is 4th, Rinus VK up to 5th. Then Schwartzman in 6th, Ericsson 7th, Eilert 8th, Rosenquist 9th, and Malukas sits 10th.
Scott Dixon's doing an excellent job looking after his tires by running that higher line, that bigger radius. It's asking less of the tires. He's driving more distance, but he's not asking as much of the front tires in the middle of the corner where you're at peak load.
And he almost doesn't want to catch these cars in front because he knows that's going to slow him down. There might be a strategy afoot where as soon as they get to within a certain gap of those lap down cars, they just pull the 9 in and get that final splash of fuel done and dusted.
Fascinatingly though, guys, there is a small clump of cars who came in and filled up while we were under caution just to try and make it to the end if they possibly could. Those cars currently find themselves just on the outside of the lower reaches of the top 10. We're looking at Callum Eilert in 8th. We're looking at Rosenquist in 9th. They may yet find themselves in a position to make something, I think, pretty interesting out of this race. It is all going to come down to these last 15 laps, as you guys so rightly point out. A splash and dash, maybe a bit of new tires as well. And Kirkwood is into pit lane, Georgia.
Kirkwood is going to be one of those cars taking tires as well, so it's going to be fuel and tires, and they did confirm no wing change from him. Kirkwood has been extremely happy with this car all night long, and it showed as he worked his way through the field.
Quick stop for Kirkwood, gets back out and on his way.
Will, you make an excellent point. Looking at the timing screen, Callum Ilott is only 17 seconds back of Scott Dixon, running in 7th place and last pitted on lap 204. If he saves a bit of fuel, he might be able to make it as Kyle Kirkwood comes back out. That's Ilott's teammate, Robert Schwartzman.
So where is Kirkwood on track compared to Christian Rasmussen?
Rasmussen is just behind by a couple of seconds.
We saw Rasmussen pit already, so that's one of the only other drivers that's kind of dived in. Connor Daly, of course, as well as now Dixon, the leader, is in the pits, responding to Kyle Kirkwood. We saw how powerful that early pit, that undercut was for other drivers earlier in this race. The number 9 machine and team are responding as now Pato O'Ward takes over the lead of the race for now. Jack.
Yeah, Scott Dixon still coming down pit lane. When I spoke to Mike Hull earlier, I said, can you do it? He kind of shook his head. I wasn't sure if he was being honest with me. Turns out he was, which I appreciate massively. Doesn't look like they're going to try any front wing changes right now, just 4 tires, heading straight back down pit lane. This is a critical outlap now.
Pato O'Ward comes in as well as Scott Dixon will blend out. We'll keep an eye on where Dixon blends to Kyle Kirkwood. Jack.
Honestly, guys, one of the biggest things about these pit stops is the cycle, in-laps, out-laps. That in-lap for Pato is going to be absolutely critical. It looked like a smooth stop, and he's also heading down pit lane.
Yeah, that was a sharp stop from the 5 as Ferrucci now inherits the lead still to make his final stop.
The question is, though, where is Scott Dixon in relation to everybody that he was battling with? And I tell you what, I think he's behind Kirkwood. He's out ahead of the 28 car, behind the 83, and that puts him very much behind the 27 of Kyle Kirkwood. There is Kirkwood, there is Pato O'Ward, and way behind is Dixon, who now has Christian Rasmussen on his rear wing. I think there was a slight delay on the front left during his stop, but that has dropped him massively down the order, and it now becomes a fight between Pato O'Ward and Kyle Kirkwood for the lead of this race.
However, Santino Ferrucci, Robert Schwartzman, Ericsson, and VK all need to pit, and it'll be Callum Ilott who might have enough fuel to hang on. Guys, the opportunity for a first-time winner tonight has never been better.
And right behind him on the exact same strategy is Felix Rosenqvist, who's never won on an oval. But right now, the leader is still the 14 of Santino Ferrucci. Kev.
And he might be a caution away from winning for the first time. He was about to stop because of traffic about 6 laps ago. They said, come in if you get stuck. He got through a lap car. Now they've said, you can go all the way to 250. So if there's a caution of some significance, he might not need to stop. Now they've changed it. They said he's going to come in about 4 laps.
Yeah, 250 sounds a bit ambitious from when he had his last stop, even with the caution laps in between. So he's just got to push as hard as he can right now to try to get everything he can out of it.
Guys, what an amazing set of scenarios we have ahead of us. You would have thought that the battle for the lead, the battle for the win between Kirkwood and O'Ward and Scott Dixon, because that was what was facing us just a few moments ago. However, because they pitted early, 4th place Callum Ilott, 5th place Felix Rosenqvist, find themselves almost a half, 3/4 of a lap ahead of both of them. If they can eke out their fuel, they are very much in contention for this win.
And why are they? Because of all the hardship from some of the top guns in this series, including Josef Newgarden in that big crash earlier, which is our Pennzoil moment of the race.
So let's take a look at that moment of the race, sponsored by Pennzoil. And guys, it really was an awful moment, but a testament to the safety of these cars and these tracks. And we're thankful to see both drivers walk away, but undoubtedly the moment of the race and the moment that turned this race on its head.
I don't know how Ferrucci would be able to hang on and run this stint in full. Almost certainly he's going to have to stop again, but his lap times are looking pretty fierce. His average speed right now still 171 miles an hour.
His crew are waiting for him in pit lane. He chooses now to jump in. Robert Schwartzman has been serviced and sent on his way. And now Ferrucci comes in behind him.
And by the way, what a great job from Robert Schwartzman to be running with this lead pack in the closing stages after starting on pole in his very first Indy 500. We have to remember, this is only his second ever oval race of his life. Great job tonight as Scott Dixon trapped in some traffic there, and Schwartzman's coming out.
Riding on board with Scott Dixon, trying to make up for that slightly slow stop. Now Marcus Ericsson moves into the lead of this race. We think he still has one stop that he needs to make. Callum Ilott does not need to stop. Rosenqvist does not need to stop. And both of them are 10 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack. Jack, what can you tell us about Rosenqvist?
Well, I actually just spoke to them, Will, and they said they might need to stop without some yellow. I wouldn't be surprised to see the 60 have to come down pit lane. So, I'm not sure what's going to happen here.
That's a twist we weren't expecting, because right now the gap between Callum Ilott and Felix Rosenqvist on that alternate strategy is fairly significant, more than you'd normally be able to make up in 13 laps for Kirkwood.
Now that's Robert Schwartzman, Callum Ilott's teammate, just behind him in the other red, white, and green Prema car is Callum Ilott.
There he is.
And then there's Felix Rosenqvist just behind. Do they have enough gas? They look fast enough. They have a great gap on the cars that are on the alternate strategy from where they are right now. So this could be the win battle right here. These three cars with Ilott, Rosenqvist, and then Kirkwood, who's 8 seconds back.
And now Rosenqvist goes for the move on Callum Ilott, but Ilott holds him off and will attempt himself to get around Graham Rahal. They're trying to go 3 wide through the corner.
And that gets sketchy late in the race as the debris starts to build. And here comes Rosenqvist with another run to the inside.
Up on the inside of Callum Ilott, Rosenqvist moves to the lead of the race. The man who finished 4th at the Indianapolis 500 for Meyer Shank Racing was in the hunt for the pole position. A brilliant run from him, and Ilott is dropping back.
And now the car in between them is Marcus Armstrong. That's the teammate of Felix Rosenqvist in the lead. He's a lap down. He's not in the mix here, but Felix has a gunner on his tail now. He can help protect this lead.
Well, unless he gives the lead to Marcus and gets him to try and pull him along to save him some fuel.
No, you want the clean air. You can control the pace. Have Armstrong be the defender if Ilott starts getting racy, but Ilott's falling back. He's losing the car. And right now, here is third place, Kyle Kirkwood. He's a second a lap faster.
And with 9 to go, we are going to have a grandstand finish in St. Louis. Kyle Kirkwood is hunting down Callum Ilott and Felix Rosenqvist. Pato O'Ward sitting just behind the Andretti driver. But can Rosenqvist do it with 9 to go for Meyer Shank?
Watch this gap right here. Minus 6.2 seconds, as you said, about a second a lap. Kyle Kirkwood is flying right now.
Felix Rosenqvist has never won a race on an oval in the NTT IndyCar Series. He has one career win. That was back in Road America a few years ago.
2020. 5 years since his last win.
He's on pit lane, guys. I think Felix Rosenqvist has had to dive to pit lane,
which puts Callum Ilott back into the lead of this race.
There he is. He's had to do it. So Callum Ilott, who was losing that pace, trying to save that fuel most likely.
But they both pitted on the same lap. So how will Callum Ilott be able to go 7 laps further as Rosenqvist is forced to the box?
So with 7 to go, it's this number now. 2.8 seconds is the difference between Callum Ilott and Kyle Kirkwood for the lead of this race.
There they are coming off of turn 4.
And that is Marcus Ericsson behind him.
Yeah, that's Ericsson behind Ilott right there. There's a few cars in between them.
But Ilott is struggling for pace, desperately struggling for pace. And now he will have his mirrors full of not just one Andretti of Marcus Ericsson, but that of Kyle Kirkwood, who is coming fast.
And Marcus Ericsson is a lap down, so he can help his teammate Kirkwood once Kirkwood and if Kirkwood gets close here. Now Ericsson just passed Ilott into 1. It is on for Kyle Kirkwood.
He's going to have to get there. He's going to have to get around Christian Lundgaard first before he's even got a shot. You can see them both in the screen. It is getting close. Less than a second now as he dives to pit lane. He's not going to make it. Kyle Kirkwood inherits the lead.
Kyle Kirkwood will lead, but he has Lundgaard ahead of him. How much can Lundgaard play the rear gunner, try to slow Kirkwood down to allow O'Ward into the mix? 4 to go in St. Louis, and Rasmussen is up to 3rd. And we know the pace that Rasmussen has. Kirkwood looking for a first win on an oval. O'Ward looking for his first win of the season. Rasmussen looking for his first win ever.
Only 2 drivers have won races in IndyCar in 2025 so far. Your championship leader, Alex Palou, and the leader currently, Kyle Kirkwood. 2 street course wins on the season, going for, like you said, Will, that first oval win. But Pato is closing.
And Pato O'Ward is close enough to start to give requests to his race team. Christian Rasmussen gets closer to O'Ward, but O'Ward can see what's going on with Lundgaard. I think Christian Rasmussen just went to the high side to have a look.
Rasmussen going for his first career podium. He's been one of the drivers of the day. That penalty threw him back to the back of the line. He's passed more cars than anyone.
And he's going to the high side. O'Ward has it covered for now, but if Pato wants a chance of winning this race, his teammate has to do him a favor, has to try and slow down Kyle Kirkwood. But I don't think he's going to do that. O'Ward's going to have to make up the gap by himself. White flag. 1 lap to go until we see the Advanced Auto Parts checkered flag, and Kyle Kirkwood leads the way. The man who, other than Alex Palou, is the only driver to have won races this season.
Here comes Rasmussen. Here he comes.
Street tracks as Rasmussen does take a look at O'Ward, but O'Ward gets to the inside of Kiffin Simpson. It will be Kyle Kirkwood, who has only ever won on the streets.
Right, baby, let's go,
no
boys.
more. He is an oval winner. Kyle Kirkwood wins again. A phenomenal drive.
Go, boys. Great race.
Crew Chief Scott Marks getting the celebratory bucket of water dumped on him for just another incredible performance. On track, in the pits, strategy, all of it.
Well, who had that on their bingo card?
Look at the top 5. Dixon 4th from way back. How about VK in 7th?
But guys, Ferrucci, Daly, a lot of good drives.
And a first top 10 finish for Prema Racing and Robert Schwartzman. But what about Kyle Kirkwood, guys? This was supposed to be Chevrolet's weekend. This was supposed to be Penske's weekend. Honda didn't look like they had a look in at all. Kirkwood, sensational drive today.
Oh, and he'll be as surprised as anybody, because not only was it supposed to be Penske's weekend, it was Penske's weekend up until 3 completely separate issues happened to those race-winning potential cars with McLaughlin, Power, and Newgarden.
O'Ward, a brilliant drive once again from him to come home in a podium position. But guys, Christian Rasmussen,
Awesome job, Jeremy.
22 places he made up in that race. Christian Rasmussen to come home 3rd. An absolutely scintillating drive. Santino Ferrucci up 14 places to finish 5th. Robert Schwartzman also up 14 places.
And you heard the shout out on the radio to Jeremy. That's his engineer, Jeremy Millis, who's not present here this weekend. Suffered a non-work related injury. He's back home at the shop, plugged in to the intercom. He's been part of this race weekend, but from afar, Dave Seifert took over the role on the pit stand. So what a way to give him a get well soon card, but one that's covered in confetti and champagne from Victory Lane here at Gateway.
What a season for this guy, Kyle Kirkwood.
And after that scintillating start for Alex Palou, we said if somebody was going to take the fight to Palou, if someone was going to take the championship charge to him, they had to bring home a consistent run of results. This now, Kyle Kirkwood's 3rd victory of the season and his 2nd back-to-back. Detroit and St. Louis. Guys, is this where a championship charge starts to take shape for Kyle Kirkwood?
Nice job. You did great. That was awesome.
Big congratulations from team owner Ed Carpenter for Christian Rasmussen. Drove brilliantly, aggressive, skillful, pounced at every opportunity, made 71 passes tonight. No one else made more than 38. How about that? And for this guy, Pato O'Ward, still second in points. No wins on the season, but he's been consistent. Georgia.
Super dizzy.
A street course ace, no more. You have gotten your first oval win in the NTT INDYCAR Series. Your restarts were incredible. The strategy wasn't incredible. What set you apart tonight?
Man, the starts and the restarts were big, right? Like, that was absolutely huge. But we were not too happy with the car yesterday, and we had got some help from the teammates, made the car really good, and came home with. Went on track with an amazing car. And in the beginning, I really didn't think that we had it, but as it got dark and it cooled down, this Honda and this Andretti Global Siemens 27 just came alive, right? And hats off to these guys. These guys killed it in pit lane. Awesome job. Everyone at Andretti Global, they deserve this. Third win on the year, man. That's incredible. My first oval win. I'm over the moon right now. Ovals have eluded me for a very long time, so it's nice to get that first one off and break that ice.
How badly did you want a first oval win specifically?
Way more than a street course, I'm not going to lie. An oval win and a road course win is what I wanted. I didn't want people to think of me as just a street course guy, right? Or else they'll just have me only going to street courses. So a little bit of job secure there. This is a big one. This is a big one for the guys. Haven't had an oval win in a long time, and at least on the 27 car. Colton got one last year. But this is huge, massive.
Kyle Kirkwood wins in St. Louis.
Pato O'Ward, P2 today. It seemed like from the outside you did everything you needed to win, minus maybe just a poorly timed yellow. Was that your feeling?
No, not poorly timed yellow. Today, I hope it was an amazing show for all you fans. It's fantastic to be racing back under the lights here again. And I was really happy with my car. Just in that last little bit of restart, I think good old Nolan was sleeping a little bit, and I think that it gave Kirkwood an opportunity, and I was kind of stuck. So, I just think it was, a bit of a hiccup there, but all in all, a very, very good points day for the Arrow McLaren number 5 Chevy, and I would have loved to have gotten that for Team Chevy. We're still winning less all year, but we're gonna keep pushing, and Road America's next.
Congrats, buddy. Kevin.
Christian Rasmussen's first podium comes on an oval. You won all kinds of races to get to IndyCar. What's the significance of this for you?
Oh, it's huge, and especially just with how this weekend has gone for us. We were really slow in practice 1. We didn't get it done in quali. We started 25th in the race. But yeah, just a way to turn it around for ECR here today. I mean, this is awesome. The race of definitely the best race of my life so far. As soon as I found out that the Highline was so effective, like my car was so good up there, both in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I just started running high, and I could just pass people, and I think we got a little bit unlucky. We were on one of the cycles. We didn't get in, so we had to do emergency service. So we started at the tail end of the field. So I drove through, got sent to the back, drove through again. So it was an awesome race for us.
And you were literally on fire at one point. Did you know that coming out of the pit box?
I heard it on my radio. Someone yelled, "You're on fire." I didn't see it, but I mean, as soon as you get going, it's fine. So
well done. 6th in the Indy 500, 3rd here in St. Louis as the rain starts to fall.
Let's do that.
We're back, and this is the Advanced Auto Parts checkered flag moment. Then Kyle Kirkwood crossed the line to win his first ever oval race. A great job from Kirkwood today, Townsend.
How about that? Just as the raindrops started to fall, there you see Christian Rasmussen, understandably very pleased, and deservedly so. Nobody took more chances, drove harder than this guy tonight. It paid off with his first career podium.
And what a run of form he's been on. 6th in Indianapolis 500, a first podium here today. A brilliant run from Rasmussen. For me, I think probably my driver of the day. To come from the back of the field like he did, having been pushed back there, to make his way through twice. 71 passes he made in that race today. Absolutely incredible.
I mean, everybody on this podium just in top form tonight. Even Pato O'Ward. I know he didn't get the win, but He did so much right as he's congratulated on his 30th career podium and gets closer to Alex Palou in the championship. Just 73 points back now.
Yeah, I mean, just a great kind of championship style drive. You know, had the car maybe to fight for the win, didn't happen. This guy here, Kyle Kirkwood, robbed him of it, but how about that, guys? Only 2 drivers have won a race this year. We've had seasons where 7 drivers won the first 7 races and 10 drivers won over the season. We're not going to hit those numbers this year. And it's such a cool feeling as an IndyCar driver, getting that first oval win. Oval racing, such a big part of this sport. And to get that first one really means a lot to every one of these drivers.
A huge deal for Kyle Kirkwood, who, as we said in the broadcast, had become seen as something of a street racing specialist. He has put that firmly to bed tonight. A scintillating drive at St. Louis for Kyle Kirkwood, winner of the Bommarito Automotive Group 500. And you can understand him struggling to lift that trophy. It's a heavy one, and it's been a long evening out there under the lights. A word as well for Scott Dixon, found himself up at the front as he always seems to do. A brilliant drive from him to finish 4th. Santino Ferrucci, exquisite in 5th. Connor Daly will be disappointed with 6th, and that, I think, is a measure of his day and just how well his day was going. That Connor Daly will be disappointed with 6th. These, though, are the top 3 drivers: Kirkwood, O'Ward, and Rasmussen. We've talked about Dixon and Ferrucci and Daly. VK back in the top 10 again. Palou, the 8th position for him today, the best that he could muster. Armstrong 9th, Schwartzman with a first top 10 ever for Prema Racing.
And then you see some names that drove with amazing control, technique, and bravery, just didn't get the result. I think about David Malukas, Colton Herta, and then at the back of the pack. How about the 3 Team Penske guys? How did this happen?
Any one of them could have won the race today. As it is, neither of them finished. An incredible race under the lights in St. Louis. Sees Kyle Kirkwood record his first ever oval win. Coming up next on Fox, late local news except on the West Coast. And next Sunday, the IndyCar Series continues with the Expel Grand Prix at Road America. 1:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. For now, though, for James Townsend and myself, that's your lot. We'll see you at Road America.